Chairperson,
Good morning.
change your background.
Yeah, no, I've just changed it now.
Hey, Uncle Leon, how are you?
Fine, and you, Minister?
Are you doing well?
I'm fine, and you?
No, we're fine, little bit cold.
Yeah, it is cold.
Yes.
Are you in Pretoria?
Yeah, I'm in Pretoria, but tomorrow I must come down. Sitlulu says I must come there to answer for Comrade Pin.
Yeah, I see you on the. Oh, well, are you going to answer the questions tomorrow?
Yeah,
I just
but you
want
must manage my brother Reddy. Ne?
No, so yeah, I just want to know if you're there. I just got to work out a nice question for you for tomorrow.
Oh, I saw I don't have a question from you. That's not fair.
No, but I've got a follow-up question.
Okay.
No, not a problem.
Thank you.
I'll be back in a second.
Good morning, colleagues. Good morning, honorable members, Deputy Minister, and our staff.
Morning,
Good
my
morning.
brother. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Nice video there. You see how shocking these water mafia are behaving.
We must go and kick them. They are thugs there. They are also
Absolutely.
allowing the metro car just doesn't stop them. You saw the
Honourable
metro
members,
car.
Yes.
my apology. It's 9 o'clock. I would like to start with the meeting. Good morning, colleagues and deputy ministers and officials from the department and also officials from Parliament. Good morning and welcome to this meeting this morning. We've got 2 points on the agenda today that we need to deal with. I'm very scared to say it should not be a long meeting, and then it becomes a long meeting, but it's not very. The issues is something that we are all familiar with. Colleagues, can I ask that we observe a moment of silent prayer or meditation? Thank you. Apologies. I've got an apology from the Minister and an apology from the DG. Any other apologies?
Yes, Chairperson, Deputy Minister Sihlulo asked to leave at 12 to attend a symposium taking place here in Cape Town. That is all.
And then Honourable Reddy informed me this morning that he's going to his son's grade, what do you call it, Honourable Reddy?
Graduation.
Yes, and we would like to congratulate you with his performance. And we understand that that's also important to be involved when your children, are getting these kind of stuff. Thank you very much. And then we will excuse you when you need to go, and as well as to Deputy Minister that needs to go. Can I then ask that, I know that I've seen in the letter that Deputy Minister Matlobos will lead the department, and can I then hand over to you, Deputy Minister?
Your Excellency, thank you very much, our chairperson, Honorable Person, and to all the members of the Portfolio Committee on Water and Sanitation, to His Excellency, my brother, Deputy Minister Sihlulo, and Tatemrolong. The Acting Director General is Dr. Rismat Mate. Is supported by a number of DDGs that have joined him, Zwane, Lusenga, and other DDGs. We are also joined the chair by the CEO of TCTA, Comrade Percy Chairman, and I'm not sure whether the chair of the board, Mayor Sibia, she's here or not. I've not seen on this background. We are also joined by our chief delegate. I will speak firstly on the first item, Chair, so in terms of your agenda. And firstly, to convey our sincere gratitude to you and the entire members of the Portfolio Committee. The first item is about an amendment bill on the question of the South African National Water Resource Infrastructure Agency, state-owned company limited. You are quite aware, those who have been following the matters, it's an old matter, but ultimately the last parliament, which is the 6th parliament, concluded this particular important matter, wherein an agency was agreed that it will be established to ensure that we consolidate our existing functions that are done by the SPV, which is the SPV in this case is the Trans-Caledon Tunnel Authority, of which all your members had a good opportunity to go and see the quality of work on phase 1 and phase 2 that is being done. That SPV, which was an act of parliament, assisted us to get the water from Lesotho. It will combine with an entity in the department, as you are quite aware, the entity which is the water trading entity, that includes our construction. In the main, we are actually making a state-owned company that will be able to have the capability to use the financial capability, the expertise in TCTA, and also the asset base we have on water resource infrastructure. In other words, the national water resource infrastructure, nothing to do with the municipal infrastructure. We must separate the two so that we can be able to continue to build on the good work that TCTA over years have done, over more than 30 years or to 40 years now, of raising finances in the market, but also to develop the new infrastructure, national water infrastructure we need, whether those new dams and canals, as we know that if we don't do that particular work, our country will be threatened around issues of security of water. And most of this work is not funded through the fiscal. As members are aware, we fund it through loans and other mechanisms around financing mechanisms that are there. They will also manage and operate the national water resource infrastructure, existing work and all obligations that are sitting with TCTA. They are coming into this new South African National Water Resource Infrastructure Agency company, and the ownership of our assets will be residing with this state-owned company. Chairperson, this one is a simple matter. When there was a president assented this into law last year, there was a discovery that the Act had an anomaly where it places some kind of functional responsibility to a Minister of Finance. That does not reside with the Minister of Finance, where there is a reference in Section 3, subsection 2 of the Act that the Minister of Finance will then do the amendment of the PFMA. You know that the amendment can only be done by yourselves, so that at least this entity can be actually be listed as a major public entity. Therefore, this amendment is only meant just to correct that anomaly, where we actually give, through this Act, the Minister of Finance powers that he doesn't have. We've had a discussion, it's a mistake happened between government, including the parliamentary processes, that it should have been picked up. And National Treasury and ourselves now, we've agreed this will continue to be a major public entity. And the only powers that the Minister of Finance have in terms of PFMA is the scheduling, which he can do in terms of Section 47 of the PFMA. That's the only matter why we're bringing this. You know that the reason why I thanked you and your committee, we introduced this matter into Parliament just now in April 24. And then very shortly, we have brought the matter here so that you can conclude. And we're hopeful that by June, July, the parliamentary processes on technical amendment, not that we're opening the Act, on technical amendment, we can do this. But the major work around the establishment of this agency is ongoing. There is a very detailed project plan, milestones that are there. Very shortly, Minister Machotina will take these matters to Cabinet and will be very pleased at a particular point that we get invited by yourselves to ensure that we do make that particular presentation. That is a summary of item number 1, and where we make this reference, where this amendment must happen, is just the team led by Dr. Mate. They can just quickly go to slide number 11 and slide number 12 and 13, then we're done. Thank you. Through you, Chairperson.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Should we go ahead?
You're welcome to proceed.
Okay, no, thank you, Chair. I think the DM has already given the whole presentation in less than 5 minutes. What we're going to do is just to re-emphasize a few of the pointers that DM has indicated, and then I will move straight to slide 11 on the introduction, and slide number 12 rather, to emphasize what DM has actually indicated. As you would have heard, the DM indicated that there was a technical error that was actually picked up in the finalization of the process, thereby after the enacting into law of the agency, it was picked up that there are powers that should not be resting with the Minister of Finance, which once it was picked up, then those amendments had to be done. Now, seeing that we have followed all the processes, and we must re-emphasize, Chair and members, that all the consultations have been done properly. If you follow through in the next few slides, all processes have been followed up in terms of dealing with all the key stakeholders. But what serves to give a good affirmation is that this Office of the State Law Advisor has actually agreed with this technical amendment. So there's no quibble around it. Also, the presidency was made aware of which some of these technical changes are agreed upon. Chair, I think the notion to take from this is that if you look at the model of SANRAL, how SANRAL and Department of Transport are operating within the sector, this is exactly how the department will be working with the agency, where some of the powers will rest with the department, but then the agency will operate in a similar model like that of SANRAL. If we go to item number 7, it's just to emphasize the consultation process that has been done. You can see that all the clusters have actually been informed. All those minor amendments or notices have actually been complied with. This is to ensure that there is no contravening with the PFMA as the DM has actually indicated. So in a nutshell, I think that is basically what we are presenting. DM has indicated, Chair, that the whole roadmap for the entire process, where we started and where we are, would come later if required. However, we are here to just update the committee on that technical amendment that was supposed to be complied with. And as you have heard, the DM indicated both houses have been made aware of this. So we are not necessarily restarting the process, but are basically bringing to the committee that minor technicality that we had to make. Other than that, Chair, I think we are done with our presentation. Thank you, DM. Thank you, Chair.
Chairperson, thank you very much. Thank you from our side.
Thank you very much, Minister. Colleagues, would you like to speak on this matter? Can I have hands? Honourable Khumalo.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair. Just a question of clarity. What is ESEIED and SPCHD and FOSAD? I just want some clarity on that one. And also, I just want to know I also want to get some clarity on the issue of the timeframes. When will this be absorbed into? When will TCTA be absorbed into this? What is this agency? This new agency that we're talking about? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can I get quickly clarity on that, Minister?
What we will do, Chair, we will have to be invited by yourselves just to come and give a detailed presentation on the roadmap. His Excellency the President, as we are aware, during the State of the Nation address, he has indicated that the agency will be fully established by next year, which is at the beginning of the next financial year. There are a number of steps that there are working teams as we speak now that is looking at issues of governance, issues of structure, issues of assets, the finances. There are many of these work streams that, including the systems. And the first task will be the appointment of the board. And very shortly, if we have gone through cabinet, we'll be able to indicate that. But by the end of this financial year, we should actually have the agency being established. But there's a lot of groundwork done by the DG, supported by the CEO of TCTA and some technical advisors. These are the names that our Honorable Nomado Zwide will talk about. Foresight, these are the structures, is a committee of DGs. It's called Forum of South African Director Generals. That's Foresight. And then your SPCHD and the ESAID, those are all the clusters in which Cabinet looks at matters. The first one is social protection, community and human development. The other one is an economic cluster. Those are the clusters that in the main are being referred to. The fact that we've introduced the bill to yourselves on the 24th of April to Parliament through the Speaker to you, Chair, we've done all the executive-related functions before it comes to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Honourable Khumalo, are you satisfied? We will invite the department to give us a full timeline on this. We will work that into our program and let them then come and give us a presentation on that. On the short names, I would also ask in future that the department, when they give us these short names, that they also indicate what it is. It's 100% correct that, you know, we've also got communities outside that watches this, and they will also won't know what this would be. Are you satisfied?
Yes, I'm satisfied, but the response by the minister simply suggests that the communities on the ground have not yet been involved in this whole thing. And also the institutionalization of this entity has not yet been finalized. So no, I'm happy for that.
Thank you very much. Honourable Moore.
Thank you, Chair. Just very briefly, I think this is just an amendment to make sure we're, you know, fulfilling the right legislative requirements as part of the Act. I don't think this is a really critical issue up for debate, and I think we support it, Chair. You know, let's get this thing through. Thank you.
Thank you. There was no question on that. Honourable Ditebe.
Chairperson, thank you very much. Good morning to you, Chairperson, to the colleagues, to the Deputy Ministers, Acting DGG, Mate, and team. Chairperson, I would also like to echo the sentiments of the colleagues that we support this. It's a technical amendment, but for me of significance is the following. We met last week, I think it was, with the delegation from the UK, members of Parliament there, and I then got to ask one of them, and I think it was in the committee and even after that when we had our tea, about whether they rule the fact that in the late 1980s, water and sanitation, you know, that was what was privatized, and whether they think that they have the fiscal capacity at the moment to buy companies that have since been operating in the space out. And quite clearly, they said they were unable to do so. And I know that there's been quite a lot of noise about the imminence of privatization of water in our country, etc. But I'm quite glad, Chairperson, that with the support of this committee, not only the SPV that the DM referred to, the TCTA that is, which has been in operation for those decades, but that out of the TCTA and other subsidiaries, etc., we can now have a state-owned company that looks after a very important resource, water. In this case, the National Water Resource Infrastructure Agency, and that there can be certainty with regards to the raising of capital in the market and elsewhere to ensure that the infrastructure is indeed built and that people can get water reliably and that we can get on so as to combat things like so-called per or polyfluoroalkyl substances. It is for me quite important, Chairperson, and I'm taking advantage of a discussion around what essentially is a technical amendment to give this background so that all of us are mindful of the strides we've made. Certainly we're not there yet, but also, Chairperson, to say as I conclude that we should support the department, rather congratulate the department on the reopening of the tunnel. We know that South Africa was long ready on its side, and as we welcome the 780 million cubic meters of water annually, of course, at the cost of 241 million rand, thereabout, I think monthly, onto our shores. What is quite important is that we need to ensure that we ourselves stick to our own standards, the Blue Drop report assessments, so that our water indeed is safe for people to drink, but that through the Water Research Commission and other such entities, we continue to do work to ensure that our people do not get sick from drinking water, because research shows that with microplastics finding their way into the water that we drink in ways that we do not even imagine, that can pose a serious health risk in the long term, of course, alongside those forever chemicals. So for me, it is quite a huge milestone. But to say, you know, the fact that this particular era has been identified shows how strong our systems, our institutions, our checks and balances work together so that there is no usurping of power by one arm of the state, etc., or within the executive or within the legislature, etc., where power is conferred to a branch that is not supposed to, or an entity within the executive that is not supposed to exercise those powers. So I'd really like to thank the Minister and his team, Deputy Ministers, and of course the Minister and their team. And thank you, colleagues, for allowing this to go through. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honourable Member. Colleagues, we've got to do this the right way. So I am now asking for a proposer to accept this technical amendments. Can I get a proposer and a seconder? And then I would also like to know whether there's somebody in this committee that objects to this technical amendments. So first a proposer. Honourable Ditebe.
Chairperson, on that same note, I propose that we accept this technical amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I get a seconder? Colleagues, can I get a seconder, please? Honourable Kobe?
Chair, seconded.
Thank you very much. Is there anybody in the committee that objects to the technical amendments? Honourable Kumalo?
We, as the MK party, we reject it. Thank you.
Right. With that said, colleagues, can we just then minute that the committee approves with the objection of the MK? Tumani, is that what we need to do?
Yes, Chairperson, it's regarded as such. So it's majority supporting the amendment and with the exception of the MK. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, colleagues, for that. Can we then move to the second item? And on this item, please, let's have 20 minutes presentation so that we could, there's a lot of questions that we need to ask. Over to you, Minister.
No, thank you very much, Your Excellency, our chairperson of our portfolio committee. On behalf of Minister Majotina, we are very pleased that we have this opportunity now, after the portfolio committee was led by yourself. You visited the Kingdom of Lesotho on an oversight visit supported by our teams. You also produced a report and with a number of issues that our teams are going to go through. Secondly, we need to indicate that Minister at the bilateral meetings where ourselves as deputy ministers, we joined with Honorable Minister of Natural Resources in Lesotho. We met here in South Africa. A number of challenges we discussed and resolved them. But also equally, His Excellency, our President, visited the Kingdom of Lesotho to meet with His Majesty the King and the Right Honorable Prime Minister of Lesotho at the level of the Binational Commission, where, and in a number of issues, but including our matters. What we need to note that the Lesotho Phase 2 Highlands project has been delayed. It was supposed to be commencing in 2011, and it was supposed to have been completed by 2019. At that time, Chairperson, the cost implications were estimated at 16.86 billion rands. But as I've indicated, the project was delayed. Only around 2021, 2022, when the department was re-established again as a standalone ministry, we were able to put an acceleration of a number of things, including this work. And then in October 2022, we started to actually work with our teams, started to award contracts, and we thought that the project would be completed by the year 2028 at a cost of estimation of 42.06 billion rands. But the revised estimates now are indicating that the cost will escalate on the basis of a number of reasons. You know that in terms of the input cost share in the infrastructure fraternity, cost of steel, the issues of fuel, the issues of labor, the issues of all the input cost, including the issues of contingencies, we are looking at around 53 billion. The last time you went there, there are notable issues of progress that were recorded, especially on advanced infrastructure. We know that the roads have been pushed, but there's some work that the chief delegate will speak to Tebogo around the ancillary work that is being sorted out. The issues around the housing, which is important, that needed to be sorted out. Most of the work is completed with some amendments or some technical rectifications. The major bridge where yourselves went to with the members there, remember the single bridge there, and progress has moved now to above 77%, including those Molanyana bridges around the Maipuyanen and Kubeli. And there are some days that we have lost. The most important aspect of the dam itself, those two dams, the Polihari Dam and the Setley Dam, progress is not at the level where we want, but we're currently at around 26.7 as compared to 34%, 36% which was planned. Then there were issues around the Polihari to Katsi. They said to be a tunnel again. Like you saw, the progress has moved now closer to 40%. And we're very pleased that even the second tunnel, the machines that they are bringing them. In the main, Chairperson, were the problem that we have said that of those particular delays, but there were other matters that arose. One of the issues that arose of disputes between ourselves and Basotho's was the issues of feeder roads. Those matters, we've agreed with the ministers now how we need to proceed. It was a matter of a dispute. There was a matter of the CEO appointment. Those matters we've also agreed to conclude them. Then the issue of a contractor that had to be suspended on the basis of pollution. I'm very pleased that our Chief Delegate Tatenkashe and the teams at the TCTA, that matter has been dealt with in terms of pollution. They're starting to put remedial action, and the team is back at work. The issues around the amendment of the treaty agreement has been made now, that the treaty will be reviewed. It's not the first review, which is an amendment. This will be probably number 6 or number 7, the team will indicate. But then the issues of time lost, we've indicated to the team chair through the minister that we need an acceleration plan, a reclamation plan, so that we can still be on time for the financial year 2028 to 2029, where all the work must have been completed, so that at least Gauteng and the surrounding communities cannot be denied the question of water. And we've agreed that we'll tighten oversight like we're tightening oversight on us. On oversight, the ministers have agreed that on quarterly basis, the commission where our representative of both countries, which is the Lesotho Highlands Water Commission, where both the TCTA and the LHWP, they are doing those particular work, we'll monitor them, and our commissioners will be giving us more continuous report so that we don't drop the ball again. But we are very confident that now all the systems are in place, they will be able to do that. The presentation itself, it will deal with all your issues, Chairperson, that you raised, but at a high level, because already the presentation has been circulated. The acting DG, Dr. Rismate, will lead. He will hand over to Tebogo, the Chief Delegate of the Ministry of South Africa, who's on the ground. But there are certain aspects in the presentation that talks to issues of funding. The CEO of TCTA, because they've been the funding SPV in the main on most of these particular issues, it will come in at that particular point on the issues you raised. And then on governance, how are we tightening governance? I've already spoken on governance, but the DDG Lusena will speak to that particular issue. I will hand over to DDG and acting DG, Dr. Mate, to ask his team to go through on the key issues that you raised so that we can have a good discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister.
Thank you.
We can conclude. We can continue. My apology.
Okay. No, thank you, Chair. We're almost celebrating. We thought we are done. We're going to take you through the presentation, Chair and members. I think DM has given the entire overview on the entire presentation. But the only point I want to make before I hand over to DDG Lusenga, who is the lead for the branch and specifically on the project, is that we have the 12 commissioners who are forming part of this LDA, 6 that represent South Africa, that are the ones that are fully accountable to reporting to the department as well as to the portfolio committee. So this accountability part of it, it's based on the South Africa side. And that's why we have these colleagues to come and give a presentation. As DM has indicated, we'll have a presentation run by Tebogo, but I want DDG Lusenga to give the quick preview, and then we hand over to Tebogo, who will go high level based on the question asked by the committee. And then on the financial part of things, it will be handled by the CEO of TCTA. And then the institutional issues, the DDG Lusenga will handle that. If you may, Chair, allow us, I want to give a chance to DDG Lusenga.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chairperson and DM and members. Yes, the DM has spoken. Mine is just to emphasize that there was an issue of that is related to the governance. Let me start with it. The origin of the treaty was established in 1986, and then that established 3 institutions. That is the Lesotho Highlands Water Commission, which is a binational body representing the governments of the government of Lesotho and in South Africa. As you may be aware, we have the delegation or the commissioners. On our side, our RSA delegation to the Lesotho Highlands Commission is led by Mr. Nkahle, and then the alternate is Dr. Furumele, and then we have the substantive delegate, Tate Johan Klassen, and the alternate is Mr. Tabani Lomfalo. And then we also have Likalake, who's a substantive member, and the alternate is Miss Likalake. The alternate is Miss Mohapi. And then the Trans-Caledon Authority, TCTA, is also our state-owned entity, which was established in 1986, as DM has indicated, as a special purpose vehicle to raise the funds for the entity. That is why they'll be talking on funding matters. And the project is implemented by the Lesotho Highlands Development Authority, the LHDA, which is a government of Lesotho state-owned entity. And the entity has its board, and the chair and the CE of the LHDA reports to the board of the LHDA. And the LHDA, all of them reports to the commission. Both governments have, like I've stated about the delegation. What is important also, Chairperson, as the presenter will be talking about the treaty, it is important also to note that the treaty is, yes? Yeah. Okay, the treaty has been reviewed, and then the last review was in 2011 for us to start with the phase 2 of the project. So, Chair, I will end here, and then I'll come back later and allow our chief delegate to proceed with the committee and respond to the portfolio committee findings, and in particular to the parts of the treaty that the committee wanted some information. May I hand over, Chairperson?
Chair, how many minutes are you giving us on the presentation before Tebogo proceeds?
20 minutes.
Thank you very much. Now, Tebogo, please, let's run leadership, then share with Pace the other aspect, and then we conclude. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Honorable Chair of the Portfolio Committee, honorable members and support staff, DM Mahlobo and DM Sitlolo, Acting DG, CE of TCTA, DWS and TCTA officials present here today. Good morning, and let me express the Commission's sincerest gratitude for being given this opportunity to appear before this honorable committee. And Chair and your team, thanks once again for having graced this project with your recent visit. Your comments, your questions, your queries were truly enlightening, empowering, and had an effect of injecting some agency into our efforts to develop viable interventions to steer this ship out of troubled waters into a sustainable path towards its intended destination, which is to deliver water by 2028. And the comments made earlier today by Honorable Ditebe are also welcome and bear testimony to this. Honorable Chair, we chose to start this presentation with direct responses to the questions raised by the committee in both its invitations to this meeting and the LHWP oversight visit report. This will be followed by a brief look at the operations and maintenance as you have requested, procurement strategies and procurement issues. We'll look at royalties, and under royalties, we will also highlight reasons for recalculation of royalties, which was done in 2023, and that resulted in us paying higher royalty rates. I know quite a number of people have been shocked at the amounts that we are paying to Lesotho every month, but we'll explain that. And then we'll get to the concept of the net benefit, and we will demonstrate how that net benefit is calculated and shared between the two countries. And funding arrangements, as DM Mahlobo said, will be done by the TCTA-CE, as they are the ones who are responsible for raising funds for this project. And then we'll touch very briefly on the LHWP governance structures, governance arrangements, governing instruments, and the constraints they place upon various entities in order to give you a sense of what the project authorities are empowered to do, Chair, their level of influence, and the constraints placed upon our minister, our deputy ministers, our DG, and various structures by the instruments. Please note that to avoid making this presentation too long, the delays and cost escalations, as well as measures proposed to recover lost time, are covered in the annexures, in the annexure that was circulated with the presentation. Even though I see that you've already moved to the slides, before I get to the presentation, Chair, I'd like to make sure that we are aligned on the terminology used within the LHWP governance. Because sometimes when we speak, we tend to confuse terms and institutions. First and foremost, let us recall that the LHWP is a bilateral project jointly undertaken by the Republic of South Africa and the Kingdom of Lesotho as the parties to the treaty signed in 1986, as DDG Lusanga said earlier. So any reference to the parties in this presentation is a reference to the two governments. So the parties are the two governments. Secondly, Article 2 of the treaty provides that unless otherwise specified by the treaty, the parties respectively designate the following authorities to implement the provisions of the treaty. On the part of Lesotho, the authority is the Ministry of Water. On the side of RSA, the authority is the Department of Water. This is where the term designated authorities is derived. Therefore, any reference to designated authorities in this presentation means the department, headed by the DG as the Chief Accounting Officer, and the minister, supported by the two ministers, as the executive authority. This, Chair, are the established terms and practices. So the parties are the two governments, the designated authorities are the department in South Africa and the ministry in Lesotho. Thirdly, Chair, under the treaty as amended by Protocol 6 of 1999, the Lesotho Highlands Water Commission, which was formerly called JPTC, from 1986 to 1999, it was called JPTC, or Joint Permanent Technical Commission, and it was renamed Lesotho Highlands Water Commission by Protocol 6. This is the body that is responsible and accountable to the two governments for the overall implementation of the project. In this regard, it advises, it monitors, and has certain limited approval powers on policies, strategies, plans, and activities of the Lesotho Highlands Development Authority. The TCTA and the LHDA, the two entities charged with the implementation of the project, are referred to as the implementing agencies. Even though they have the term authority in their official name, we refer to them as the implementing agencies. And in terms of the various contracts, construction contracts, they are referred to as the employer or the client. It is also worth noting upfront that Article 5, subsection 8 of Protocol 6 to the treaty provides that the Commission shall be responsible and accountable for the project, shall act on behalf of and advise the two governments, and most importantly, be the channel of all government inputs into the project. Chair, designated authorities, therefore, cannot give instructions to contractors, engineers, or the implementing agencies, nor can they enter into performance contracts with any implementing structure. You may have seen an article on Independent Online yesterday saying, and I quote, Majodina suspends Lesotho Highlands Water Project over pollution breach. The minister cannot suspend construction work. So the article is misleading in terms of the origin of the instruction. Let me at this stage, as was said earlier by DM Mahlobo, indicate the good news, Chair, that suspension has been lifted and the 1,300 workers who were temporarily laid off resumed work this morning. The engineer on Friday accepted the interim measures that were put in place by the contractor, supplemented by a comprehensive remedial plan submitted by the contractor, and the engineer issued a letter lifting the suspension to enable full implementation. Okay, subject to conditions that say that there will be full implementation of these proposed remedies. So, Chair and honorable members, there is a specific hierarchy enshrined in the instruments. We start with the parties, the two governments, then the designated authority, the commission, the board, the LHDA or TCT executive, the engineers who are clients' representatives on site, and lastly, contractors and service providers who are employed by the implementing agencies to undertake specific activities. Okay. Although the role of the PMU, which has been a subject of discussion between ourselves and the department, and it's something
my
that
apology, Tebogo.
Yes.
Let's try, because time is limited, to answer the issues that the portfolio committee raised on all the issues around O&M. The background is enough now because we're left with about 14 minutes to go.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, DM. Let's go to the answers now. Coming to the first one, which is under operations and maintenance, we were asked to reflect deeply on clauses and provisions that deal with operations and maintenance. And we provide our views in the next few slides. This particular one, Protocol 6 on LHDA, sorry, let's go back. Article 7. Let's go back to slide number 6, number 8. Sorry, number 6. Yes, number 6. Thank you. In terms of operations and maintenance, Article 7 of the treaty indicates that LHD manages and maintains Lesotho's infrastructure, ensuring operations, safety, and monitoring to comply with internationally recognized standards. Now, it is LHD that manages and operates, and we provide what is called shareholder oversight. But LHD also has a board that provides strategic direction and monitors LHD's own operations. And Article 8 of the treaty gives the Trans-Caledon Authority the responsibility to oversee South Africa's infrastructure that is related to the project, while however, it should be noted, Chair and colleagues, that this article, Article 8, was repealed by Protocol 6 and replaced with Article 8A. And the reason for this was that under Phase 1B and Phase 2, there is no construction footprint in South Africa. So TCTA is no longer involved in construction. Instead, Article 8A expanded TCTA's mandate to incorporate or to include raising of funds and the managing of debt. Okay, only the TCTA head of operations and maintenance is accountable to the commission and reports quarterly. Okay. Now, Article 9 talks about JPTC, which, as I indicated earlier, was renamed Lesotho Highlands Water Commission in 1999. And this LHWC, of which I'm the chief delegate for the RSA delegation, oversees both TCTA and LHD activities, approves plans and budgets, and ensure compliance using audits as some of the instruments. Article 10 deals with cost-related payments, which are payments made by TCTA to LHDA to fund all the activities, various construction, operations, and maintenance activities. Next slide, please. Now, Article 3, LHWC appoints LHDA board. We must recall that Protocol 6 introduced a professional board. In the past or previously, Chair and colleagues, board members were principal secretaries from various departments. Principal secretaries are the equivalents of director generals here in South Africa. And until 1999, the board was made up of principal secretaries, sorry, not principal chiefs, principal secretaries from various departments. And Protocol 6, which was enacted in 1999, introduced for the first time a professional board. And this board is appointed by the Commission. Okay. And the proposed new agency, Article 4 talks about institutional arrangements in South Africa and gives TCTA the role of operations and maintenance of the South African side of the infrastructure, as well as authority for future phases. This is the role that may be played by the new agency if LHD is incorporated into the new agency. There's already provision for that in Article 8A of Protocol 6. Which indicates that the government of South Africa may exercise its authority over implementing bodies and may also establish any other entity to replace TCTA. Next slide, please. Oh, by the way, sorry, just before we leave that next, that last slide, slide number 7, that last bullet point there, that gives the Lesotho Highlands Water Commission the authority over implementing bodies and the ability to exercise such authority through audits. I need to highlight, because this is a concern that was raised by the committee, about delays and escalating costs. Please allow me to highlight at this stage that we have resolved as the Commission to appoint a multidisciplinary team to conduct management audits of all problematic contracts to get to the bottom of these delays and cost escalations. So we've already gone to the market to source this multidisciplinary team, or we are going there soon, because we've just approved the terms of reference and the advert. And they are going to start work soon to try and get to the bottom of these delays and the escalating costs, which seem to be unrestrained. Okay, next slide, which is the feeder roads. Let me also indicate here, Chair and colleagues, that feeder roads are not the beautiful access roads you drove on your way to site. The feeder roads are the roads that form a ring road around the reservoir and restores the community access across which has been impeded by the reservoir. These are the ring roads interconnecting pedestrian and vehicular bridges and roads leading to newly established resettlement areas. These are usually not very busy roads, only a few vehicles here and there. But we had this dispute around the maintenance of the feeder roads, if I may summarize it in a few words. We as South Africa constructed these roads as a water transfer cost, and Lesotho was supposed to be maintaining these roads after they were transferred. There was an approved asset divestiture policy, which was not fully implemented, and as a result, the roads were not really, or rather, the memorandum of understanding for the transfer of those roads was developed but never signed. And as a result, the government of Lesotho never maintained these roads. So now they've been shuttered and they're not drivable and they need to be restored. Now, the dispute was whether they should be restored as a water transfer cost or that by the government of Lesotho. We are asserting that they must be maintained by the government of Lesotho, but they're saying it's a cost to RSA. This is where the dispute has arisen. However, in the meantime, while the ministers resolve this matter, we in the commission have resolved to allow an interim measure of a 50-50 cost allocation for the rehabilitation. But our minister has made a compromise offer to Lesotho. We are still waiting for Lesotho to respond. And that response has been outstanding for some months now. Okay. We can, I think, complete that one and go to procurement. I'm not going to dwell too much on procurement. Safe to say that the legal framework for procurement is in place, and the treaty defines objectives, governance, and cooperation between Lesotho and South Africa in relation to procurement. The Phase 2 agreement supplements and modifies the treaty and provides the legal basis for Phase 2 implementation and ensures operation and maintenance of infrastructure from both phases. Article 10 of the Phase 2 agreement governs procurement and fosters fair competition and monetary distribution. It must be indicated in summary, Chair, that there are certain preference targets written into each contract. And we have recently conducted an audit of the extent to which the contractors are complying with these preference targets. And the preference targets include procurement, employment, enterprise development, and skills development. And the report has indicated that there are gaps in compliance, meaning the contractors are not fully complying, and LHD is currently engaging the contractors or interrogating this audit report, and we will be reporting soon on what measures need to be put in place to improve performance by contractors in relation to these preference targets. Just to give you an indication, for instance, there is skills development, and under skills development, LHDA had this young professionals program initiative, but has been unable to attract an equitable number of South Africans into this young professionals program. So that is the summary on procurement. On royalties, again, we had a couple of we can pass the procurements, the slide. We have completed that. On the royalties side, colleagues, royalties are covered under Article 12 of the treaty, and there's also Protocol 1. Under Article 12, subsection 1, or rather under Protocol 1, South Africa undertakes to share with Lesotho by way of royalty payment on the basis of 56% on the part of Lesotho and 44% on the part of South Africa. How those figures were arrived at and why they're not 50-50 is a product of negotiations at that time, and none of us were around during those days. We don't know why Lesotho ended up with a bigger share, which is 56. But the net benefit is calculated as the difference in cost at present value, using 1981 as a base year. And I see I'm being pushed for time now. What I would say is during pre-feasibility, two hypothetical schemes were considered for the purpose of determining the net benefit, which are the two schemes demonstrated here. One was the Lesotho Highlands water project with 5 dams built over a 50-year period, delivering 70 cubic meters per second. And the other one was OVTS, which was to build a dam where the Orange River exits Lesotho into South Africa near Aliwal North, and to have a pumping system all the way from that area to the Vaal. And the difference in price between the two is what is used to determine the net benefit. That's the same net benefit that is shared 56 and 44% between South Africa and Lesotho. We will in future, Chair, with your permission, maybe present further details on this to the committee. The next slides deal with the number crunching. I wouldn't want us to go in there on how we arrive at the royalty that we are currently paying. So I would suggest that we skip all those slides and go to slide number 29. And slides number 21 is just conclusions to say that due process was followed in the recomputation process. This recomputation was done by a consultant and verified by an expert. And there is full agreement with the findings and recommendations of those external consultants' validation report. And we started paying the revised royalties in January 2024. We are currently, in fact, we're paying then around 230 million a month. But in the last couple of months, in the last 6 months, because there was no water being delivered and no electricity being generated, we were paying around 120 million a month. That is the end of the section on the royalties. And just, if you allow me, Chair, I will just summarize the taxes in 1 or 2 paragraphs to avoid a lengthy discussion on it. The provisions of Article 14 have, since the signing of the Phase 2 agreement in 2011, been implemented without a challenge for approximately 5 years, up to July 2017. At that time, the Revenue Services Lesotho unilaterally deviated from the provisions of Article 14. They disputed their requirement to reimburse the Lesotho Highlands Development Authority for 70% of income taxes collected from expatriate contracting parties and employees. After several discussions, an agreement was reached in the Commission on the interpretation of Article 14. But this interpretation was later unsuccessfully challenged by the Principal Secretary for Natural Resources, thereby delaying its implementation. We've written several letters, and I think the last one was in September 2024 to LHDA, confirming that there is neither a dispute nor a disagreement between the parties on the provisions of Article 14 of the Phase 2 agreement. Whatever disagreement there was between LHDA and Revenue Services Lesotho was resolved by the Commission. What is outstanding is the exchange of diplomatic notes between the two governments on the amendment of Article 14 in order to provide clarity to the parties. We therefore instructed LHDA to calculate the interest on tax repayments due from Revenue Services Lesotho as per the recompensatory arrangements provided for in Article 14 of the Phase 2 agreement. Just to give you an indication, Chair, the VAT amount outstanding as at 28 February 2024 amounted to 513 million. So we felt this was quite substantial and called for urgent action. We did make some notable efforts towards resolving this impasse and recovering the amounts owed to the project by the revenue services. The two chief delegates met the Commissioner General of RSA and obtained an undertaking that the refunds will be made. She also confirmed that an income tax bill was already before their parliament and contains an amendment that seeks to domesticate Article 14. We also met the PS Foreign Affairs to obtain an assurance that the exchange of diplomatic notes or note verbal on the interpretation of Article 14 was forthcoming. LHDA has also, through its lawyers, issued a letter of demand to RSL. Please note that the recompensatory arrangements under Article 14 is very specific on how repayment by RSL is to be processed. Repayment shall be made to LHDA on submission of a claim. Where payments are made later than 45 days after submission of an invoice, then Lesotho shall pay an interest at the rate of 10% per annum. So all this money that is owed to us should be paid with interest. We tried to propose using royalties, but a letter was written by a minister from Lesotho confirming that there was no dispute, but rejecting a proposal to withhold a portion of the royalties. In short, the tax dispute has been resolved in our favor. All that remains is the transmission of the note verbal or exchange of diplomatic notes.
Chair, thank you.
Let me leave it there. I'm done. We can move to funding arrangements.
Can you give us about 2 minutes, Chair, with your permission? My apology.
That's fine. It's fine.
Just for Percy to speak about issues of funding arrangement, 2 to 3 minutes, the CEO. Yeah,
thank you.
Comrade Percy. The TCTA DG.
Yes, Percy, if you can just summarize the next 3 slides in a nutshell. DM has given the indication of how the funding was when the project was stopped to the changes to where we are now.
Can you continue, please?
I'll suggest that acting DG just speak to slide 39 around the or you can just speak to slide 39 because I don't see what happened to the CEO. We are apologizing, Chair. It looks like he might have been kicked out by the system. Yeah.
Can I speak? Yeah, no, thanks, DM. I think you have spoken to the funding arrangement. I think the summary is in slide 38 to indicate the changes in the cost from phase 1. I mean, when we started phase 2, with the time delays and how it has actually amounted to where we are now. The slide 39 is just to indicate the current funding strategy on the integrated Vaal River system. We are indicating there, Chair, the current credits, which I think they was trying to highlight in a high level, and also the committed long-term loans. As you know, the fund has to be raised from the market to fund this project. So those numbers are indicating how much funding facilities or loan has actually been generated for this project, and also the projected revenue from the tariff collections between 2025 to 2023, so that the investment on the project value is basically paid back. As you know, government doesn't sit with the money had to be raised in the market. We're also indicating, Chair, the domestic multi-term note, the program, which talks of which 10 billion should be funded directly from the Vaal River system funding, as well as some of the delays that will have a direct impact on the funding. But you would have heard Teboho indicate that much as there have been some of the delays, and DM emphasized that we are still adamant that in the next few years, the project should run into finality. Slide 40, Chair, in summary, is just indicate that with the delays that we've had in the project, we have now indicated that the cost is currently sitting at roughly over 53 billion. As you know, that the project has actually been delayed from when it was initially planned to where it is. That's basically in a high-level summary, Chair. I think on the last few slides, the issue of governance have already been covered by DDG Lusanga in the opening remarks. So would not actually re-emphasize those pointers from slide 41 going forward, because those are the delegation roles, who should do what, how the commission is set up, and the reporting thereof. I think that is basically the end of our presentation, Chair. Thank you, DM.
Chairperson, thank you so much. With the extra minutes, our team was very slow. The CEO for TCTA Chair, the technical team have to help is online, but the mic doesn't want to open. But please note, Chairperson, there is a detailed implementation of phase 2 status report on a document that is part of this document called Annexure, and some of the issues I spoke to when I did the overview. But that's our presentation, Your Excellency Chairperson. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Colleagues, can we go over to questions? I see the hand of Honourable Ditebe and Honourable Kobe and Honourable Moore.
May I proceed, Chair?
You may proceed, thank you.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. And once again, thanks to DM Mahlobo, DMC Tlulo, Acting DDG Mate, Datenkhahle and team. I'd like to know, Chairperson, I think it on record is now confirmed that with the current phase of the project, Lesotho Highlands Water Project, the volume of water that gets transferred onto our shores is 780 million cubic meters annually, with an expected 490 million cubic meters additional, that is to the 780 million cubic meters at the completion of this particular project, which we are told has been delayed, but that there is an acceleration plan to get it back on track to expedite it. Now, I'd like to know, Chairperson, as far as the cost issue is concerned, the 53 billion rand, to the extent that the department provides raw water to the water boards, etc., and to the extent that the bulk of the water, that is the 780 million, I beg your pardon, cubic meters of this water annually, benefits the province of Gauteng, who actually gets to pay the project costs, that is a 53 billion rand. Is it from TCTA to DWS and then Rand Water? How exactly is this cost covered? Now, the feeder roads, that Nkhatle says when we were in Lesotho, all those beautiful meandering roads through the mountains that we traveled on actually aren't part of the ring roads that he referred to. Now, those particular ones, who actually paid for those roads, because it is quite clear that these are roads that were constructed very recently. And of course, we welcome the development in the area. But the other issue is, are we quite certain that as and when this project unfolds, and I've already stated that the state of the roads there is quite good, of course, also to support the project. Now, are we quite certain that the communities, as per the provisions of the treaty, in and around those particular, I mean, the projects where the projects are located, that are not left worse off, that is communities in Lesotho? The other question, Chairperson, relates to what Ndate Nkhatle spoke to, and that is the multidisciplinary team that will look into the internal audit processes. Now, at what point do we then get our own AGSA to interface with that process? I heard him say that they've gone out onto the market to ensure that they do that. And I think it's after we ourselves raised some concerns, but it is not quite clear. You know, the Auditor General, for example, observes international norms like your IFRS, and that would be the same with the Auditor General in Lesotho. But insofar as the Lesotho Highlands Water Commission is a composite body of the two countries, with him as the chief representative in that body, how then do we ensure that our own supreme audit institution, the Auditor General, is indeed part of this, and that as a portfolio committee, insofar as we do not have jurisdiction in Lesotho, can benefit from that information insofar as it would have been shared with our own Auditor General in South Africa. So, and Chairperson, with the acceleration plan, exactly when are we expecting that this particular project will be completed? In other words, the additional 490 million cubic meters will be delivered in South Africa. Lastly, Chairperson, we have a huge amount of data that's been generated, among others, by the Council for Scientific and Industrial Research, which is very well respected around the world. Now, I've referred to this in the past. They've done a study, a projection rather, of a number of areas in each municipality in our country. Where will we be in terms of climate change, the physical environment, the economic and the other social issues, etc. Now, each of those indicators are very important. Now, with regards to this particular project, without a doubt, water will be impacted by climate change. So, where are, maybe let me put it this way. What is our projection insofar as the projected trends as far as climate change are concerned, in terms of in particular, the final phase of this project? And is it actually the final phase that we will be seeing of this particular project, that is of the Katse Dam Reservoir network? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Deputy Minister.
Hey, we asked so many questions, Comrade Chair.
Yeah, I allowed him, but the following will only ask 3 questions.
Yeah.
I forgot to tell him he
No,
knew
thanks.
he was asking too many questions, Deputy Minister.
Yeah, I tried to write. I'll be supported by the team. The issue around the feeder rows, Honorable Dithebe leadership, it's a matter that became a matter of a dispute. And ultimately, because we had not formally handed over this asset to them so that they can actually do what is required in the treaty around their own responsibility. With a sort of pain, we then had to make a proposal to say, let's do the maintenance of the roads 50-50, and so that we can have a handover process. Ultimately, the accounting officer was allowed by us as a ministry so that we can do good in managing these relations. Already some work is being done in terms of rehabilitation of those roads that you could see not in good condition. But we had a good discussion between the 2 ministers that this matter, we wanted to be clarified and finalized. And the minister on the other side was very positive. The chief advisor of the minister is here, Comrade China Dodovu. Myself were all in those particular meetings. And it's a matter that you could see even in the presentation. Some work is being done and the matter must still be resolved at the level of ministers. And the issue around the surrounding communities, around beneficiation, it has been discussed too. The Basutos raised the issues around some issues of compliance with the socio-economic development goals, which is your SED imperatives around procurement opportunities, employment and training opportunities. And our presentation, Honorable Dithebe, indicates that there are some lapses on this particular matter. And when Tate Nkatse was making a presentation, it's a matter that we need to pay attention because there is a dissatisfaction, including the performance of some of the contractors that we're referring to, that these contractors have not performed well. The LHDA, which is an implementing agent on that side, has a full responsibility in the CEO to do certain things. That's why we've made decision to tighten the oversight. As the ministries of the 2 countries, the commission is directed to report now, Honorable Chair, on quarterly basis. Our own delegates, they will report just before that particular meeting. We will not actually relent on that one, Chair, because if we do, we will allow this project to go on autopilot because of certain issues of inefficiencies. We will not allow that to happen. The issues of the multidisciplinary team and so forth around issues of AG, I will ask Comrade Percy and Tebogo to speak. But more importantly, we have to appreciate that there are treaty obligations. LHDA is not our institution. It's an implementing agent in another terrain. in Lesotho. But also TCTA is our institution on this side that has a number of obligations around this particular project. And you'll remember, Chair, in the past, in the last administration, we used to have challenges around the submission of our annual financial statements on time to Parliament on the basis of the complexity of the audit issues. The DG Sean and the CEPC, they've worked over time to ensure that there's a sight by the AG on some of the issues that are related to this project, because in the main, we are the ones who are funding this thing, and Percy will speak to funding and how are we managing those particular issues. But it's an important matter, Chair, and in as much as there's a limitation, but there is an involvement to some degree that Percy will speak to. On the acceleration plan, we are very clear that we have demanded that we need a turnaround strategy to stabilize the project. Time has been lost, and the figures, the finances, Chairperson, are escalating. We want to arrest that particular matter so that we don't actually deal with the issues of slippages. The contractors that are there and their performance is a matter of concern. If you find time and space, you'll check the annexure that we've given. Some of them, you find that they've lost more than 76 days. They've lost these other days. In the last engagement between ourselves and our commissioners, we've directed that we need a recovery plan. We have not received one so that we can be able to deal with those particular issues. But on governance, as I've said, we are actually taking responsibility as a ministry that we should be able to lead on governance issues. But the water delivery, in terms of their revised program, it must happen by August 2028. And then the project should be closed by September 2030. That's what they've given us as the ministry. The dam, the civil works, they've given us February 2029. The dam to be completed in terms of testing, in terms of the integrity of the asset, in terms of wet testing, they've given us August 2029. And as a ministry chair, we are going to hold them accountable in terms of that. Let's just allow Percy to quickly deal with the issues of finances and also the issues of the AG. Then Teboho can add where Percy might have left behind. Thank you.
Thanks, DM. Thanks, Chair and members. I hope I'm audible this time. I'm using a different gadget. Am I audible, DM?
We can hear you now.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. I think I just need to start by saying Article 10 and 11 really explains the role of TCTA. The project is done in Lesotho, which is a different country that has its own policies and regulations. But South Africa is responsible for payment of all cost-related issues, wherein South Africa is going to get that enduring benefit. TCTA has been appointed by the minister to be the institution on behalf of the country that makes good on all cost-related obligations on the part of South Africa. Now, I think the honorable member asked the process in terms of how it works, which means in the beginning, TCTA with the directive from the minister, we do have that directive that says TCTA will go into the market to borrow the funding. And that money that TCTA pulls together would actually be what gets to be utilized, and specifically on the capital side to say, we are building a new asset. And this is how it has happened. I know phase 1A was funded by Lesotho, but from phase 1B and phase 2, South Africa is fully taking control of raising of funding. Now, using FIDIC as the kind of contracts, which means before the people that have been appointed on the procurement side by Lesotho or by LHDA, although South Africa still has a role because the commission has an oversight role, and the commission is based on people from South Africa and also from Lesotho. So jointly, they are actually overseeing the project. What comes out of there would now be looking at the total cost based on all the processes have been put together in terms of whoever is going to build the asset. Once the asset is built and the water starts flowing, that water, as it comes into South Africa, then gets to be received by the department itself. So the department then would sell it to the water boards. The water boards would then purify the water and then sell it to the municipalities, who will then sell it to the end users. Now, the process is one way. The other way now, in terms of answering your question, is the municipalities would get the money from the users via a tariff, and then they will actually pay that to the water boards. The water boards would actually take their part as they sell in the water to the municipalities, and then they would actually pay what is due to the department, and the department would actually take a portion of looking after the dams, because the dams are still with them, and then the rest of the money would actually come to TCTA. TCTA would then use that money to fund or to repay their loans, and also to look at servicing them throughout that period. And we do try to go for long-term loans so that we don't have sharp increases in terms of the actual cost, because that would actually have the tariffs being quite high. So what I'm saying is there are two parts to this. The project through the tariffs would actually will get money from there, but mostly capital side would be us going into the market, and this money is coming back. One other thing that has been a decision that has been made, we always talk about the acid mine drainage. I think 33% of the cost comes from the proceeds coming out of this project, because what the decision that was made at the time was, if nothing gets done by South Africa in as far as acid mine drainage is concerned, it is going to actually pollute the very water that we are bringing from Lesotho. So there was a decision that was made, I think, probably higher up, whether it was Parliament or Cabinet, to say the water sector would actually look at this, because not doing anything with it would actually create these particular challenges. Now, that is the process in terms of how this project is funded for. And I think there was a slide that talked about the amount of money that TCTA has raised as well, and the amount of money that is raising in the meantime. If I have to go into that slide just to explain, I can do that. But I think at this stage, we are at a point where we're comfortable with our ability to raise funding. Of course, the issue of the cost escalation has actually affected us a bit. And it's important, and I'm sharing the sentiments of the portfolio committee, that we need to keep tabs on the cost escalation, because if we don't do that, even the money that we have raised might not be enough, and this is just going to be passed through to the end users, which you cannot accept. Now, the question, which leads to the question that the member had asked, that talks about the AG. Auditor General of South Africa is Auditor General of South Africa, period. Lesotho, they would have their own auditors that are following a different process. The good thing is all the auditors are following, if I can talk about the International Financial Reporting Standards. So the deal that we made with them, and the AG was asking the right question to say, this is South Africans that are paying for this project. So we need to make sure then that whatever they are paying for is what's due. So there's a lot of instruments that we put together to say, between ourselves, the AG on South Africa side, and the auditors of the Lesotho side, to say, by right, it's good for Parliament, it's good for the AG to say, but we need to know how the costs are actually being calculated there, and we need to make sure that we only pay for what is genuine and what we have to pay for, which are cost-related payments in as far as it relates to water coming into South Africa. So the agreement that we have now is, we actually engage with the AG to say, please tell us what information would you need so that you can actually audit and look at it. And then there's a deal between them in terms of Lesotho making that information available and any other explanations that are necessary. And as long as the AG on the side of South Africa is not happy, then we actually engage with them to find out what kind of information they require. It's easier when it's within one country, but I think Lesotho as well is looking at that to say we are a different country, but we've been able to, as the Deputy Minister has said, been able to find a way of ensuring that we can get all the information that the Auditor General would require. And in fact, we started setting up standard to say, tell us on an annual basis, what kind of information do you require so that it can be made available as part of the reports as they come for them to actually do their work. And the biggest issue is that one that Estebo was saying. On the ground, you have the engineer that then certified that this work was done. But we've had a lot of meetings also with the DG to say, for our people like Teboho that are on the ground on the other side, and we do have some supporting staff. We have engineers, we have accountants and all that. And they need to verify by way of signing off every work that has been done that requires payment by South Africa. From us as TCTA, we never pay a cent unless it has been verified by the people that represent South Africa that are based in Lesotho. Like we said, our people in Lesotho are doing oversight, but in terms of releasing those payments, it's on the strength of those that represent South Africa in Lesotho that we are able to actually pay. But then there is still the issue of how this gets audited and how we actually have the AG satisfying themselves that everything that we've paid for, there is documentation that support everything that has happened. The interest of time, these were the key issues. You can direct me, DM, if there's
it's fine, Comrade Chair. AG made 4 recommendations, and the 4 recommendations on around the project itself. Some of them we have started implementing, and others we need to proceed to tighten and strengthen things, in as much as there are different jurisdictions, like Percy is saying. One of the things the AG says we need to do to exercise oversight, especially we are going to be looking at the question of the treat again. And the treat we have said now, the Minister of Water and Sanitation, Comrade Pemi Majodina, and Minister of Energy and Electricity, we have met to discuss the amendment of the treaty because of the relationship between hydro power and the issues of water. But when we look at these issues, we'll look at the issues of the realities, to look at the current economic, environmental, and other issues. And then the accountability and transparency, especially around the issues of the funds. We are very pleased that we are here in front of you, have done the work. On our side, as I was reporting, this is the mechanism that we need to do. And working even through the parliamentary processes, also to get ongoing updates from our own delegates, our own commissioners. Those are some of the things that we'll continuously be reporting to you, Chair, to deal with those particular issues. And we are also looking at alternative water sources, depending on the environmental issues, whether it's climate change, the economic issues in South Africa. That's why Percy is correct. The issue of AMD is an important matter, because if it is not attended to, it can cause pollution to the Vaal River system, especially the acid mine drainage of the mining that happened here in Gauteng, also in the Free State and elsewhere. It can impact more. It will increase the cost. That's why that particular project, we've asked TCTA to manage it on our behalf so that we don't pollute the water. DMC truly is worried about the issue of the water. It might also come in so that the water doesn't get polluted, because they will have an impact on the cost of water. It's part of managing the environment and climate change. We're also looking at the issues of groundwater exploration. We've directed our water boards to look at more groundwater that is available, especially in the Vaal system. And we know that there might be issues. And Minister is supporting Lesotho now on the additional 2 weirs that they want to build around the Mohakare Dam so that Lesotho can do irrigation. But there's also water that is going to go to Botswana that will supply the areas of the Northwest. These issues around climate change, they are taken into account. If we can just allow DMC to look quickly to conclude this part.
Thank you very much. With your permission, Chairperson.
To continue.
Yeah, I think it's quite important, and I think the committee would
I would sound like a broken record when we speak about the issue of pollution in terms of the greater scheme of things as it relates to our investment in climate resilient infrastructure or our continued investment in bulk infrastructure. But that particular infrastructure investment, Chairperson, will amount to nothing if we do not find sustainable ways to stop the continued pollution of our water resources, particularly within the integrated Vaal River system. And I think that it is important that we highlight these points so that we do not get ourselves caught in a situation where we have missed an opportunity in as far as our contribution towards the issue in and around the water value chain in the country. As the minister often emphasizes, our water balance is in order, although if we do not get certain things done, we will run into a deficit if we do not begin to address some of these issues. TCTA is managing 3 of our AMD plants in Gauteng. The biggest concern that I've had, and I've raised this issue, and it's an issue that the department will, of course, need to discuss with TCTA, is, of course, the beneficiation back into the department of managing those particular plants so that we can begin to invest in additional components that will be able to treat that particular water to a certain standard that can then be able to be either sold for irrigation purposes or for whatever purposes, depending on how our capabilities are in terms of the treatment of that water. We are continuing, Chairperson, with making sure that we engage with our municipalities as per the outcomes and resolutions of the water and sanitation in Durban, particularly in the context of making sure that we're able to address the issues of pollution that I do think are negatively affecting, the water value chain in the country. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Deputy Minister. Honorable Ditebe, are you satisfied with the responses you got?
Yes, Chairperson. I'll give other members an opportunity to ask questions. I have other questions that are related to those that I asked, but for now, I'm happy. I just need 1 or 2 follow-ups just to conclude my thoughts on that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Kobe. And then it's Honorable Moore after Honorable Kobe.
Okay, thank you so much, Chair. We'll also like to welcome the presentations from the department and also Lesotho Highlands Commission. I've got just 2 questions for me. I think the audit question was thoroughly covered because we would like these audit findings from the multidisciplinary team to be made available to our auditors so that we have an ongoing monitoring system on how the costs of this project will go. Just on this, I'd like if the department can give us a cost breakdown of the project, how much has been incurred, what has been spent on what, and also the projected costs over the next few years until the project is completed. And will these projected costs definitely lead to a 53 billion rand, no more, no less cent? I think that's what we'd like to see as a portfolio committee, that we don't have any more ballooning costs that are going to come up and surprise us. I'd like to think that they have taken into consideration the inflation and expected costs that will come up. I'd like to have a cost breakdown to see how the 53 billion, we will have that and no more and no less. Also, Chair, I think the treaty makes Article 12 makes allowance for the review of the royalties rate. I think that's for every 12 years. And I just want to ask, why is it not that we review the treaty over the variables, especially considering that maintenance and operation costs have a tendency to significantly change over the period of the project? Why do we then wait over a certain period of time and not review it yearly to see if the royalty rates and match the maintenance costs and operation costs, which would be, as expected, escalating or variating between the years. I think if we wait for too long before we review the royalty rates, we will run the risk of South Africa really paying for more than they bargained for, seeing as on Lesotho's end, it is risk-free. Also, the minister did mention that the contractor was cancelled due to or temporarily laid off, and it was due to negligence. When we were in Lesotho, we were under the impression that there's constant monitoring going on there, and this maybe does not seem to be the case. So, what was the situation there, and how will future scenarios be prevented? And will this contractor or service provider incur any penalties to ensure that we do not have this going on? If contractors are given penalties if they are delayed in terms of, constructing a bridge, why don't we have the same penalties to the service provider who was clearly negligent? Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Minister. Can you also just indicate, because we were informed now that the project is ongoing again, maybe just get confirmation or whether that is the case. Thank you.
No, thank you very much, Chair and the Honorable Governor. The project is proceeding, and remember, there are different packages of work that is being done there. The other works never stopped, Honorable Chair. And if honorable members, you can also just check that annexure report now. That annexure report, it gives you the latest implementation status, Chairperson, especially to say what's happening around a number of issues. And the issues of underperformance of contractors, Honorable Chairperson and Honorable Governor, is a big matter of concern. That's why we had to make decisions as ministries of the two countries that our delegates must report more on an ongoing basis. We're on record now that we'll do meetings on quarterly basis. Because one of the major issues, Chairperson, there is the LHDA, it has a chairperson, it has a CEO and a management. One of the things that we have directed our commissioners, we need an acceleration plan to reclaim the time that has been lost. In certain instances, more than 76 days, a number of days have been lost, and which is unacceptable to us as ministries. Therefore, we want them to deliver this acceleration plan. The CEO, through the LHDA and our commission, they must put the CEO on terms around performance targets, Chair. So this project is on time, is on budget. Like the times that we've given, that they should be completion by 2029, and then the project must be closed by September 28. We don't want to move from that particular issue. All of us were very worried around the issues of cost escalation. Some of the cost escalation is because of the issues of contingencies. If, Honorable Kobe, you can just find time, just look at the slides from slide number 37 to slide number 40. But Percy will come back to say how these funds are looking at it, because even the people who are lending us the money will actually look to be very, very poor, Chair, if indeed we are going to have a situation that this is not arrested around dealing with those particular issues. But in terms of the issues of the issues of the review, we've agreed, Lesotho has asked for the review. The issues of the review on our side will take into account the commitments that our partners in the past, they made commitments. There were certain times where they failed to meet their financial commitments. But I'm very happy, Chair, to indicate that the Kingdom of Lesotho has been able to come back. They are meeting their financial commitment. It was one of our biggest complaints. The issues around operation and maintenance is an issue that we must deal with, the issues of the royalties. But Chairperson, when we review the treaty, we must find a way to look at the issues of the current economic reality. If the matters that are happening now, where the US, for whatever policy decisions, they are actually proceeding to impose the tariffs that they are imposing. A country like Lesotho and ourselves, our economic situation is going to change. Our developmental realities, Honorable Kobe, going forward, they might have to change. That's why we're saying to Honorable Ditebe, not only that we appreciate that there's water from Lesotho, but we must also ensure that we have water security so that we don't import more water for other reasons that we are looking at in terms of dealing with the issues of the mix. The contractor indeed was actually suspended. That's the report we got. And the minister convened a meeting. We're very embarrassed when these matters were in the papers. And it was also a demonstration of an oversight in the reporting mechanism. Because this contractor has been noting for quite some time of not respecting directives. But after the intervention of the Minister Majodina, supported by ourselves and the DG and the TCTA and the commissioners, that contractor was put on terms. Now they've started to do the issues of rehabilitation, ensuring that they can't continue to pollute. And we've been told now that this contractor has been allowed to be back to work. But these contractors in the main, they need to be able to jack up. I will ask Percy just to come back if he has other details on those funding, Chair. But some of the information, not to go beyond 53 billion rands, is a matter that we can't confirm, but it's a matter of concern to all of us. And that's why your recommendation around finances and the recommendation by Treasury and the recommendation by TCTA and ourselves is the most important matter. And we'll have to squeeze people down without compromising the quality of their work. Thank you. Percy.
Thanks, DM. Perhaps what I can say is, of course, we are worried about the cost escalations, but perhaps I need to start here. The treaty itself, it's an instrument that a lot of thought went into from both South Africa and Lesotho. So even if we're looking at reviewing it and why there's the 12-year review period, if there are other problems that need to be sorted out, there are escalation mechanisms because you don't want to touch the treaty many times. And that is what gives comfort to the funders. The funders want to know that whatever money that they put across, there won't be new requirements that would actually go against the analysis that they've done and decided that the project is safe enough for them to put their money into. And I think, as the Deputy Minister is saying, it's a very sensitive area if you look at what's happening at the geopolitical level, where there are now tariffs all over the place. And you have to ask yourself, if there's a lot of changes, or Lesotho now demands some other differences to say, now we want our portion to be bigger. What does it mean because all of these are funded by the South African water users. So it's I'm saying there is a review process, but we don't want to touch the treaty many a times. But that 12-year gives us enough time for us to decide what is it that would work for us and how do we make sure that we can account properly to the committee and to the users of water in South Africa, especially where they get water coming out of this project. But on the other side, there are other instruments. DG talking to his counterpart, which is the principal secretary. If there's no agreement, some of the issues are escalated to the two ministers as well. So we do have a lot of other processes that we're following. But the most important thing for us is the oversight, as the chair said. Some of these things have happened because we were looking at things high level. The issue of contamination of water on the other side was one of those things that started an operational thing that the engineer would say, please fix this, and then it doesn't get fixed, and over time then it creates a big problem like it has at this stage. So some of the things coming out of lessons learned are how we are looking at the oversight role, to the extent that we are able to pick up these things before they become serious issues. But I'm happy to also, because Tebo did say as well that the engineer is now satisfied with the plans that have been put in place, and everybody is now back to work on that aspect where people were asked to actually down tools because the engineer had to say they cannot actually operate under these circumstances. Now, on an annual basis, and even on a monthly and quarterly basis, we get reports from the board of LHDA via the commission to actually look at how are we doing versus the cost. Of course, there are other issues that have to be taken into consideration, but we know what the big ticket items are in terms of what might increase the cost. And the role of South Africa in all of these things is to make sure that we keep the cost down. And as has been said by the member, if there are penalties, they need to be paid by the right person. One of the things that we're looking at is to ensure that if there are any issues of negligence or issues where it's just things that were not supposed to happen, that should not be for the cost of South Africans. And that's one of the things that we are tightening as well, to ensure that we can't have all these cost escalations happening like they have been. At least at this stage, we are in the implementation phase, because you can make your own cost estimations, but until you go out into the market through a tendering process or trying to get bids, only then would you know what the market has to say. So we are at that point where we got the pricings and the contracts have actually been finalized. Now it's a matter of what sits in there. Are we saying these access roads are supposed to be by us, or they are supposed to be for Lesotho? Once the project, we have done the roads, Lesotho itself has its own Ministry of Transportation and Roads, and they have to look at that and accept some of these contracts to say going forward they will actually be responsible for that part. So these nuances need to be sorted out, and these are some of the things that would be part of these renegotiations, because the renegotiation of the treaty is not only for the benefit of South Africa. Lesotho itself will be looking at it from their own perspective and what is it that they can gain out of it. So I do agree and share the sentiments of the committee members that it's very important that we actually cap the cost escalation. What we are trying to look at is, it is looked at as 53.3 billion, but we have actually tasked the South African representatives to start looking at that, to say we are not going to pay a cent in terms of things that are not supposed to be paid by South Africa. On other side, we need to look at the ones that legitimately we believe South Africa has to take care of. But the issue of escalating cost is actually one thing that South Africa is looking at very closely. Thanks, Deputy.
Chair, we can just ask Evoko to come in, or one of the commissioners, just on the management of this cost, because we are not prepared to go beyond this. But Honorable Kobe, after this, we will find time to give you the full activity-based costing, including the timelines, so that we can do it in writing. But if Teboho or one of the commissioners, there's something to add on what we have said, me and peace. Through you, Chair.
I can continue.
It means they are covered. They are not coming through. We can proceed. Yeah. That's our response.
Thank you very much, Minister. I think something that's important that I never realized that TCTA has informed us now is that when you go out to the market to get money, they want to make sure that the treaty is a treaty that will be there for a long time and that you won't change it on a yearly basis. And I think that makes sense. Honourable Kobe, are you satisfied with the response and that you will get a breakdown of the cost in writing?
Yes, Chair. I'm quite satisfied with the answers that I've received from both gentlemen. If we could have a timeline as to when we can receive the cost breakdown, that would be great. Thanks, Chair.
Normal 14 days to get that. After Honorable Moore, it will be Honorable Kumalo and Honorable Dlelanga. Honorable Moore.
Thank you, Chairperson. Thank you, Deputy Minister, and to the department and the TCTA. I appreciate getting more information. I think this project is constantly burning on the top of our thoughts, and it is one with great concern. I have 3 questions for now. The first one is around communication and transparency, DM. On a number of issues with this project, we keep having to find out information in the media instead of receiving the information from the department. For instance, the maintenance of the Lesotho Highlands water project phase 2, or not phase 2, the tunnel that was due to be completed at the end of March. We got a piece of communication that it should have been finished by mid-April, but then we heard nothing until I found out from someone else that the project had been completed on the 21st of May, almost 2 months late. Again, that type of delays and the lack of communication to us on this project, it doesn't create confidence. And it's the same thing with regards to the construction of the tunnel, phase 2 tunnel, which was stopped because of pollution. And DM and to DM Satolo, just to say very clearly, my concern isn't so much the delay, because we have delays and delays. My concern is that the pollution that caused the stoppage of that work was pollution into Katsi Dam. It's the water that comes to South Africa, potentially polluting the tunnel, potentially polluting the Ash River, the Lebensberg Vlei River. It's a very serious thing. It's not just the delay, but it's also the pollution. And I know you covered that, but I don't feel we've got enough information. And Chair, maybe that can be something else we get, is information on that. But putting it aside, we got that information from the media. When we got information about the significant delays, again, it wasn't from the TCTA or the department, with respect. It was when we went and did oversight to Lesotho. So in a number of places, in terms of the communication and transparency around this project, we aren't getting immediate communication. It's only once we find information that we get communicated with, which is problematic, Chair. The second thing is I'd like to talk about the impact of the rising project costs on tariffs. Given the significant escalation of project costs from the original budget to the current 53.3 billion estimate, I'd like to ask, what is the projected impact of these increased costs on water tariffs charged by, for instance, Rand Water, and how it will affect residents who are relying on this water? Because these projects need to be able to pay for themselves. Phase 2, we need to be able to recoup the money in order to get the investment, but that is causing a significant impact in terms of the rising costs. And I want to be clear, because everyone's hedged and been very careful about this. The 53.3 billion was before the trade war with the US, before the US started causing significant economic damage worldwide. There is almost no way that is not going to have an impact on the costs of this project and many other projects like it. We can try and recoup as much as we like about that, but to pretend and I understand no one's pretending, they're trying to avoid saying, yes, this is certainly not going to be the final cost and it is likely to increase, which only gives more impetus on how does the department ensure that the tariffs remain fair and affordable for residents of Gauteng and other supply areas benefiting from this project? And the final thing, Chair, is just to go, and I suppose this is actually directly to you, DM. I understand the department's response about the Auditor General and that Lesotho is a different country. But quite frankly, considering the complexity and bilateral nature of the Lesotho Highlands water project, and our current concerns around overruns and compliance issues, we need, and the lack of transparency sometimes around this communication or lack of communication. I really think it is absolutely critical that we get an external person, someone like an Auditor General of South Africa, and preferably the AGSA, to exercise more rigorous oversight and ensure comprehensive financial and operational transparency on this critical project. And it is possible for the AGSA to do this. It is possible for us to come to an agreement with Lesotho, with the entities in Lesotho, to allow the AGSA to do this. And I'm saying to you, DM, this isn't really to the TCTA, it's not to the department, saying, DM, is there political will to try and ensure that we get the excellent and thorough oversight that our AGSA provides to South Africa on this, the most important water project in our country? It is possible. Is there will to make that happen? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Minister.
No, Chair, thank you very much to Honorable Mo. The last matter, Honorable Mo, that we are raising is a recommendation that we are taking it very seriously. We are not going to dismiss that recommendation that we have made, because the issues around transparency and accountability are very important issues. We will mandate our teams that we should find modalities and modalities that are more credible on ensuring that even that institution is on the other side, because our delegates, they are actually the board of directors. And when they spoke about multidisciplinary team around certain of these issues, allow us just a space, Honorable Mo, to digest this matter and say how practical are we going to have an accounting mechanism and a mechanism that will promote transparency, that on both sides, we know that there is value for money, because when TCTA raises the money, ultimately is water users of our country that will have to pay. And we do take that particular point. Even during the issues of the review of the treaty that we have agreed now that there is a revision, we are going to have to reflect on that particular issue to say, how do we strengthen it? We welcome an independent view like we have given us to say, probably we need that mechanism. The issue around the communication is a fair criticism. It's a fair criticism, and we accept it. We'll work through the committee. We have to be making a mechanism between the portfolio committee itself and ourselves on how to share information that is very important on the nature of the work. Whether it is the Lesotho Highlands scheduled maintenance. There is another maintenance, Honorable Mo. Randwater will be doing maintenance in the next few days, impacting Gauteng and other provinces for quite some time, and how municipalities are reacting to that. But the Lesotho tunnel, we had issues of delay because of the weather, you might know. And secondly, our people on this side had to be very innovative, because you can't do the blasting and coating them when the temperature is very low. They had to find a way. Lesotho, then they were a little bit delayed, but we did go there. But fortunately, on record, the plan to ensure that communities are not affected. Free State, we have them a lot. They were the most affected ones. The dams were refilled by those releases that were done earlier. We gave them boreholes. They are very happy. In Gauteng, remember, Chair, we could not actually come to the red zone, which is the 18% for the releases. But there was a time when the weather was very, very hot, inclement, the temperatures high, coming to below 25%. We're ready to release the water in Sterkfontein, but all the issues. But at that point, we take it. Chairperson, yourselves, you'll suggest how do we do these things. Even some of the projects we do in other communities, so that we are informed. The pollution around the Kasa Dam, the commissioners in Deboho, they will come in to say what was the impact, because they are closer to the situation. And that's why even on our side, when the matters, they came to the fore, many had to intervene. We still have to get the results, whether the system is now improved in terms of microbial and chemical component of that particular effluent. The cost, indeed, they are going to rise. And it's our concern for all of us, like we are saying. And we don't want the burden to be borne by the end user. It can actually, the water can become very expensive from Lesotho. It can become very expensive. That's why that prudence on financial management, but the review to look at the current economic environment and developments after the issues of the developments of the imposition of tariffs. We must do a quick review and do a socio-economic impact assessment. What happens in that particular space? But it will have an impact if you can look at the issues, even the rainwater tariffs now from the valve system, they're a little bit higher. They're a little bit higher. That's why the AMD is a solution, the issues of reuse of water and the other mechanism that must be done so that at least we don't have problems, including the issues of electricity cost for pumping. But let's allow them just to deal with the issues of the contract and the pollution and what are the results looking like. And then Percy, if you want to still to come in around the cost issue, or the CFO can come through. Thank you.
Permission, Chair, to respond?
Yes, please continue.
Okay, thank you. To respond to the question of pollution, yes, indeed, there was pollution, but the pollution is localized and insignificant due to the size of the effluent that was running into the reservoir in relation to the total volume of the reservoir. However, it is significant from the construction monitoring point of view. Monthly water quality monitoring is still ongoing in the reservoir, and it has not shown any significant increase in any of the indicators of sewage pollution. So that pollution has not been significant in relation to the overall water that is delivered to South Africa. If I may also respond to two other questions that I think were left out of the responses by DM Mahlobo. Honorable Ditebe asked about the beautiful access roads, who paid for them? The simple answer there is RSA. These access roads are part of advanced infrastructure. That means to get to where we want to build the dam and the tunnel, we need to build advanced infrastructure. Advanced infrastructure entails roads, power lines, camps, telecommunication infrastructure, water treatment plants, and so on to enable construction to go in. The Northern Access Road, which is the road that you drive on to Katsidem, that was built under Phase 1A. However, it was resurfaced as a new contract under Phase 2. So Phase 2 was just resurfacing, not building a new road. However, the other roads that you saw or you traveled on, which was the Podihadi Western Access Road and the Podihadi Northeastern Access Road, those are new greenfield roads built as part of advanced infrastructure under Phase 2. One question from Honorable Kobe relating to whether there is inflation catered for in the 53 billion. I need to emphasize that the 53.3 billion rand long-term cost plan already includes contingencies. Actually, about 6.2 billion of that is contingencies. There's escalation and contingencies already built into this long-term cost plan. And also, furthermore, each contract also has a built-in contingency. So there is some provision for inflation, for possible currency fluctuations, and time-related escalations. Thank you. I think that's all the questions that I picked up that may have not been responded to. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Chair. Percy, do you want to come in on the rising cost, or our answer broadly covers the issues, but and the caution Honorable Moore has given us?
Perhaps the only thing I would say is the cost to 53.3 billion, of course, has cost us looking at the side of recovery. that the tariffs would normally increase by over CPI on the South African side so that we can close that gap. And Honorable Moore is right. The discussions happened before these tariff wars that are happening now. But already we had negotiated with the end users like Randwater on our side, and Randwater has actually engaged with their municipalities in terms of the cost. So whatever tariffs we are dealing with now already has this effect of the escalation to 53 billion actually locked in. But we are quite sensitive, and rightfully so, as he is now putting it on the table, that we need to ensure that we don't have extra cost or increases that cannot actually be justified, which is something then that we do with the AG as well, looking at the figures, looking at the cost, and also looking at justification. But it's not only the AG, I must say. AG looks at matters after the fact. What we're looking at putting up, as the Deputy Minister has said, is the monitoring over and above what the Commission is doing with our delegation as well. So we are looking at all of these particular issues, but I think at this stage, we have to try and smooth out the whole thing of the cost increments, and we won't be looking at just CPI, but we will be looking at the level above until we are finished with the construction. Then it will be easier to look at smoothing out the cost requirements. I think I will keep it at that level, Deputy.
No, it's fine. There is a matter of penalties and suspension of cost. They work with about that one.
Oh, thank you, Chair. Thank you, dear Mahlobo. Honorable members, first of all, let us understand that the suspension on the tunnel was not the suspension of the whole works on contract 4021, which is the tunnel contract. It was targeted suspension, targeting specific operational areas that were non-compliant. Now, any costs arising from termination based on non-compliance becomes a cost to the contractor, not a cost to the client. So the delays and the cost of remedial actions that are required, including what has been instructed as the installation of new clarifiers and agitators and so on, that will be a cost to the contractor, not a cost to the client or the cost to the project. And that's one thing I needed to clarify. And also there was a question on the completion dates, which DM Mahlobo addressed. However, I just wanted to add that the contractual completion dates remain until we have approved an extension of time. And any costs associated with delays are a subject of dispute resolution board's rulings on whether the costs are to the client or to the contractor. But as far as the dates are concerned, those will remain the same until such time that we have approved an extension of time. Thank you, DM. Thank you, Chair.
Chair, on the issue of pollution, we are going to ask Deboho and the team. They will give us the compliance report. They will have to give us a compliance report within the timeframes that has been standardized between ourselves and the portfolio committee, so that through DMC we are satisfied that the quality has met the standards. And the other one on escalation of cost, we have indicated that the timelines and the cost will bring them, but the guidance around the reining of the impact on the end user will continuously do monitoring and do socio-economic impact assessments over time, depending on the changes of the economic situation between the two countries, on other developments that might affect them, so that the end user doesn't bear the biggest brunt. Chair, thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Minister. Deputy Minister, I think TCTA has made a very, very important point on the cost. After the fact, we should not just focus on after the fact or after the money has been spent. I think the focus should be on, we've got to monitor the spending of the money as it happens. And I think that's very crucial, that we strengthen that portion so that we don't, have these costs and then find out 18 months later that we've overspent on a project. Honourable Moore, are you satisfied?
We'll do that, Chair, on our quarterly meetings, that guidance, that they must report on finances, yeah.
Thank you very much. Honourable Moore, are you satisfied?
Thank you, Chair. I'm particularly satisfied with the DM's response. Obviously, DM expect continued pressure about the AGSA. It's the most important project in the country, and I'm really glad you guys are turning your thoughts to it. But I'm very satisfied with the entire response. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Honourable Khumalo.
Thank you, Chair, for an opportunity, and greetings to both deputy ministers that are in our meeting today. I've got 2 or 3 questions that I need to ask for the sake of clarity. Sometimes when we pose questions, we don't pose questions simply because we may not necessarily have an answer. But since the whole country is watching, it's very important perhaps to ask some questions for people who are watching us to see, to understand what is going on here. Look, on the question, I understand that the last treaty review that was done in 2011. So my question to the Deputy Minister, as much as he has indicated that the treaty will be reviewed, but when can we expect the treaty to be reviewed? Like what date, how long maybe will it take for a treaty to be reviewed? Like will it be done in 2 months' time, 2 weeks' time? When exactly is it going to be made? And also, which aspects of the treaty will be looked into, which will be actually be reviewed? Because that is very important. Remember, some of the challenges that we are experiencing today with this project, it's because of the gaps that are there in the treaty, which really needs to be reviewed. And another thing, I had Tebogo Rusenga, I believe I'm pronouncing his surname correctly, where he said the ministry has done some compromises with regards to the feeder roads. Can he perhaps, is he confident enough maybe to share those compromises that the minister has made, so that maybe one would know also, and when were they sent to Lesotho, those compromises that he is talking about, and so that maybe we should know, like he said earlier, it has been there for months. It has been with Lesotho for months. I would like him to be more specific as to how many months are we talking about now. And lastly, looking at the high number of unemployed graduates in this country, we feel that it's very important for this department also to play its role in terms of ensuring that the unemployment level is brought down in one way or the other. So in his presentation, he said they are failing to attract the South African professionals to this project for them to work in Lesotho. So my question is to him, what is it that can be done, or what is it that this portfolio committee can do perhaps to ensure that we encourage young people, young professionals in particular, to go to Lesotho? Because remember, these funds that are being used in Lesotho to build these projects are from South Africa in the main. So I just want to find out from him as to how can we assist as a portfolio committee to encourage young people to go to Lesotho and work there, because South Africa currently is experiencing a high level of unemployment. So that is my question that I'll pose for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member. Minister?
No, thank you very much. Chairperson, on the review of the treaty, our team has been able to indicate this is not the first time, which will be a review number 7. And like Percy is saying, you don't want to rock the boat. Remember, the treaty is a founding document. Any review must take into consideration the issues that, for an example, around improving transparency, like Honorable Moore has said. It must also take into account issues of improving accountability. Like yourselves, that's what you have said, including issues of oversight. But it will also look at some of the aspects around, it will have a reflection on the current economic, environmental, and developmental issues so that we don't have a problem. The Kingdom of Lesotho is the one that has said they want to do this thing, but we're also looking forward, especially on the issues broadly in principle. But we don't want to review we don't want to review the treaty now, Honorable Zwide, in public. We've assigned a team. Firstly, the 2 ministers of energy and electricity, Dr. Ramohupa K, and Minister Majodina, we've met, and then we've agreed to put up a working team. And the working team are going to interact at a technical level. They are led by DDG Lusena. They are going to start to firstly look at what are the proposed areas on our side. These are some of the issues like taking your recommendation to account, one to look at. After the team, they've done the indication between themselves and the Basotos. They are going to come back for the mandating, Honorable Chair. They will have to be mandated by the minister. This time it not be the minister, it will be the ministers, because also the Minister of Energy, so that we were able to do that, while at the very same time protecting the base of that particular treat. At this stage, Honorable Umalo, I can't give you the timelines, but we are continuously monitoring that report. It is one of the requirements of the next binational commission between the President of the Republic of South Africa and the Right Honorable Prime Minister of Lesotho, that this is a matter that we should be reporting on while we reported on the other matters. Only at the time of the BNC will the amendments can be effected, because you will need them to be signed at that particular level. On the issue that Tebogo has responded to, that we have did a compromise, I'll respond because it's a political question, Honorable Chair. There were matters of disagreements between us and Basotos. And those disagreements, Chair, they were part of the problems of the delays we've experienced, including the issues that it was impacting on issues of relationship. You know, there was the issue of the CEO, there was the issue of the feeder road, there was issues of procurement, a number of these issues. And this year, about a month or 2 ago, we met. We then agreed that the matter of the feeder road cannot continue to be on the table. There was a proposal that was made by the predecessor to Minister Majodina, Comrade Mchunu, where we said, let's do this particular issue. And we started to do the rehabilitation of the roads that we've seen yourselves when you went on the ground. But they were supposed to come back on their own contribution. They have not came back, but the minister has promised in our last engagement at our levels that he will come back after interacting with Treasurer on his side so that we can conclude the matter. That matter has not been concluded. It's not a matter that there's a compromise. It's about finding a solution in the conflict that is there. But we are looking forward to that. Immediately these roads are actually committed, we can be in a position to actually ensure that these assets, in terms of the treat, these assets are handed over on the question of Lesotho. But that question, I'm the one who's responding on it because in public it can come out in a particular way, Chair. They can actually even twist it. But there are no matters that they have not been agreed in principle. Our officials are processing those particular issues. The issue around the unemployed graduates and attracting those professionals into Lesotho, Tebogo is going to speak to that as our chief delegate or one of the commissioners he will assign. But on our side, we are spending a lot of time investing in building the next capacity of scientists and engineers for the sector. Let's say our Water Research Commission has many fellowship around doctoral level. There's a lot of people who are doing master's level. Even in our own department, there's a lot of people that who have actually taken through the bursary scheme that are part of our learning academy. And there's a lot of training that the department does. Even those of us when we're young, we work in the sector, that issues of training for the future skills, not for the department, but for the entire sector, including supporting local government, as we discussed at the Indaba level. We highly support those ones, Zwide, to do so that we professionalize our sector. But let's speak on the question of Lesotho attracting those professionals, like Tebogo has said. Tebogo?
Thank you very much, DM. Thank you very much, Chair. I can confirm that the LHDA's Young Professionals Program currently has 60 young graduates in various fields, including civil engineering, geology, environmental science, electrical engineering, architecture, quantity surveying, urban and regional planning, social work, archaeology, and so on. Out of these 60, unfortunately, 55 are from Lesotho and only 5 from South Africa. But if you look at the numbers that applied and the numbers that we actually interviewed, for instance, from South Africa, as many as 39 young graduates were offered opportunities, but they declined. Only 5 accepted. And the reasons range from a number of issues, including the low stipend that is offered and some complaint about the working and living conditions up in the mountains. But there are some interventions that we are discussing, we are considering to try and attract more young graduates from South Africa. But at the moment, out of the 60, we only have 5 from South Africa. And also, if you allow me, Deputy Minister, I can respond directly to Mr. Ngumalo's question around the proposal, the compromise proposal that was given by...
I've responded to that because we have discussed at our level as ministers on how to conclude the matter, and we're waiting for Minister Muhlomi to come through.
Okay, thank you very much. That's all for me at the moment. DM, thank you.
Thank you very much. Honorable Khumalo, are you satisfied?
Thank you, Chair. I will be brief. I'm very much concerned at the Minister's response, Deputy Minister's response, with regards to the fact that he says there is no time frame. It's a little bit worrying. It's not a little bit worrying, but it's worrying because currently we are experiencing problems. So therefore, we need to be very decisive in terms of addressing those issues. And the only way of addressing those issues is through amending reviewing of the treaty. That's very important. So the longer it takes, it's indeed a very problematic for us as people who are actually funding that project in Lesotho. So, according to myself and according to we need to address this thing as in yesterday. And also on the issue of the number of people who are working there, it's really worrying to hear from the from the report that only 5 are from South Africa. I remember when we were in Lesotho, we were told that the South Africans, I mean the Basotos, when they find out that the South Africans are getting paid more, then it becomes a challenge. It doesn't sit well with them. But I did raise a fact that, you see, when a company from your country employs you and then it takes you to another country, obviously it will have to pay you more because you are working away from home. You're working away from your country. So I feel that maybe it's contributing, since the Tebogo has said people are not attracted because there's a low stipend that is being paid. Obviously, they will be discouraged. Sorry about that. So they will be discouraged. So I'm appealing, therefore, to you, good people, that really you must look into this thing. We were told that the Basotos will go on strike if they're getting paid less for the same work that the South Africans are doing. But look, when you are employed from South Africa and you go by a South African company, then you go to another country, it is a standard practice globally that you'll be paid more. So that's what I'm appealing, that we need to make sure that this matter is addressed. We cannot have 5 people when our country is pumping so much into Lesotho. No, we cannot allow that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We take note of your concerns as well. Honorable Dlelanga, your hand was up and down. Or do you still want to ask a question?
Yes, Honorable Chair.
Thank you. You can continue.
Thank you so much, Honorable Chair. Greetings to the deputies, the 2 deputies and the leadership of the department, including you, Chair, and all the honorable members. I think, Chair, my understanding of this engagement spans from the fact that we were part of the oversight visit in Lesotho. Therefore, I will try not to be as if I'm still in Lesotho, but more on the progress, on the work and the reports we received, including the one we have received today. I think what is critical, DM, is that this process is very critical and a proper management is needed, despite the challenges that the project might encounter. I'm more covered by other members on various questions that Dave asked and the explicit responses by the department, in particular on how we intend to handle the question of the treaty renewal. I'm happy with that. I'm also happy that you will submit in writing the cost breakdown of the activities. It's just only 2 questions that I want to get a clarity on or a response on. The first one is that having mentioned that you intend to get quarterly briefings on the activities and the progress made on the project, is it possible that also you can give an update on the progress report quarterly also to the committee? That's the first question. The second question is more on the youth empowerment and employment, especially those ones from South Africa. The reason advanced is that the majority of them are declining, As such, there are only 5 out of 60. And the response also further said that there are interventions that the team is working on in this regard. The question is, what are these specific interventions? And what are the targets to achieve those interventions so that you can employ more young graduates from South Africa? Because how I view it is that they can get a lot of experience given the magnitude and of the work that is done in Lesotho. Thank you so much, Honorable Chair.
Thank you very much, Deputy Minister.
No, Chairperson, we don't have a problem if the portfolio committee, you make a determination that on key strategic projects, including the Lesotho Highlands Phase 2, we must give you ongoing reports depending on the frequency so that you can hold us accountable. We will support any accountability measure you do. But also on our side, we need to do that because there are many, many major infrastructure projects, Chair, that have to deal with issues of water security, whether it's Glen Williams Dam, Mzimvubu, you name the others. Honorable Comrade Lelange, we're on the same page on that accountability framework. Deboho will probably share with you to say what are these interventions. But generally, we must agree that when it comes to issues of governance and oversight, as a ministry, we've agreed that is an area of concern. And even the AG, including yourselves, Chair, and your committee. And we're starting to put mechanism to tighten oversight and governance arrangement. That's why the delegates have to report on an ongoing basis. The commission itself is going to report to the 2 ministers. It's our undertaking. Then the issues around the financial management and financial prudence they will look at. We also have agreed, Chairperson, that when it comes to procurement opportunities and employment, I call them socio-economic development goals. Most of these goals, they have not been met. And it's a matter of concern. One of the issues is the opportunities of enterprises, both in Lesotho and in South Africa, including the local communities, Honorable Ditebe, that you raise around the infrastructure, the dams, on how they benefit. And it's an area that the 2 ministers have agreed that we need to tighten up so that there is that particular issue. There is statistics that we are getting that only few young South Africans and professionals are joining that site as compared to the actual total number. It is unacceptable. Therefore, our delegates and the LHDA, they will have to give us a mechanism that we'll share with you to say how do we ensure that the conditions are conducive for South Africans to participate, because they too, it's a country-to-country project. They have to be in a position to benefit, including the issues, not only benefiting around these issues, but even the water. The water must not flow, Chairperson, for hundreds of kilometers from Goditabi and Lesotho until in South Africa. And the communities in Lesotho, they don't get water. That will be a traverse of justice. The very same attitude we have that when the water arrives in South Africa, through the tunnels, through the province of the Free State, the water can't just come to Gauteng. And the people of Free State, they remain thirsty and they have a water poverty. That will be inhumane, but it will also create security conditions that are not actually advisable, including the issues that how do we deal with the issues of pollution. We firmly agree. But on the issue of the treaty, Chairperson, Honorable Mumalo, you might not have appreciated, I might not have given you the date. The date of when the review will be signed after the review has been done, it will be in the next binational commission. That will be agreed between the heads of state of the two countries. That time will be ready. Already the Department of International Cooperation, DIRCOM, has been assisting us. There's been issues of interaction with the Basotos, and the two ministries have agreed that our teams must work together. In our case, we have brought in the Minister of Energy and Electricity. Remember, the Minister of Lesotho is responsible for natural resources, including mining and other issues. Our teams are flat out working on that particular issue. But let's not lose the principle. The principle why this treaty was signed in 1986, the fundamentals can't change. When we change, as we have said, it will only change because we want to improve oversight, want to improve issues of accountability and issues of efficiency. And more importantly, there are developments, Honorable Mo, you are absolutely correct. The changing of the global balance of forces, like Honorable Ditebe also spoke about, and the impact that is there. It will impact on our economies and the other issues, including the issues of the tariffs going forward. That's what we'll do. But let's not also be under the impression that Lesotho is not contributing. Lesotho is contributing in the project. It has its own obligation. In as much as the quantum from the South African side is much higher than the quantum the Lesotho is actually paying. But we're also looking at the win-win. That's why when we do this other assessment, we should be able to do that. I'm not sure whether at this stage, Deboko, do you have some of the consideration of the initiative to ensure that South Africans are attracted to them and they have bearable conditions so that they don't decline the issue of being given an opportunity? Because the reality, they've been given an opportunity. But if they decline, it's a problem. But if there are conditions that must be attended to, our commissioners, including LHDA, must attend to that matter. Debo.
Thank you, DM. Please allow us an opportunity to engage with the department before we can disclose such initiatives to Parliament, because we need some support from the department for such initiatives. But what I can say is that we've had quite a number of engagements with various entities, including academic institutions and so on, to see how we can partner or collaborate to expose students to various research opportunities and to improve the living and working conditions, and also the extent to which we can review the remuneration of stipend without unnecessarily increasing the cost to the project. So there's quite a number of things that need to be done. There's quite a number of engagements and discussions that need to take place before we can disclose such initiatives to Parliament. Thank you, DM.
Thank you very much. Honorable Lelanga, are you satisfied with the responses you received?
No, thank you so much, Chair. I'm satisfied. However, we can allow them to engage with the department so that they can have a shared approach and shared understanding on how best to attract these young professionals from South Africa. But they must know that they owe us as a portfolio committee that information. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. The next hand that was up was Honorable Ditebe. Did you still want to ask a follow-up question?
Yes, Chair. Thank you very much. Chairperson, I'm very much happy that the Deputy Minister and I think our Chief Representative to the Lesotho Highlands Commission have talked to the issue rather briefly of the lack of appetite on the part of our students to go and work in Lesotho. Without making any excuses, I'm just saying as a nation, we need to just reflect on our own attitude, especially when it comes to working in conditions that are very difficult. I'm raising this, Chairperson, because if you look, for example, in the health sector, community service in our country you have exactly the same pattern where doctors are less attracted to rural areas or the rural hinterland of South Africa. And more often than not, they would want to go to urban areas and metros, etc. So perhaps it's something that as a nation, we need to think about. And I'm saying this not so much to try and act like a spokesperson for the commission or the department, but we ourselves went there and we hardly saw for something like 80, 100 kilometers, a single filling station or some very, dignified retail point, etc. So I think psychologically, our young people would think about all of that. But I think that will change with the passage of time. Once you have some economic and social infrastructure along those roads, beautiful roads that Ntate Teboho, I think that's his proper name, Nkgahle referred to, that we have paid for ourselves. And I think in the spirit of solidarity, Pan-Africanism and multilateralism, we need to just think beyond this particular 53.3 billion rand project. Chairperson, having said that, I'd like to ask the following question. CEO Sichemani referred to a suite of contracts and he referenced FIDIC. And of course, while that is an international standard of contracts that's used across the world or globally, we also have the new engineering contract. Now, there are some differences between the FIDIC and NEC. Now, why am I citing FIDIC and NEC in this context? If you take Kopano ke Matla, for example, and the fact that, at least as Honorable Moore said, we got to know this through the media, and we are happy that both the department and our reps in the commission say that they will be proactive in apprising us about challenges on that front of the project. What happens if Kopano ke Matla offends again? Right? Will it, in the context of FIDIC, that is the implementing agency agent, will it be able to find a contingency replacement insofar as allocated works to, for example, Kopano ke Matla are concerned? Because while indeed Ntate Nkgahle says the amount of effluent that discharged into the river is not that significant, but that it is significant from the point of view of, the monitoring of the quality of water on the project. Will they be able to find a replacement immediately? And why is it that the adjudication and dispute avoidance does not seem to be successful in respect of such instances of Kopano ke Matla in terms of risk management, preempting those and anticipating those. Anticipating those and preempting those. Those are my questions, Chairperson. That is my question. Thank you.
Minister?
Maybe let's allow Teboho and Comrade Percy to respond on this one. And then the other matters were matters of comment, Chairperson. Let's just take them as comments. But let's allow Teboho to say, what do we do? Do we have the balance and checks so that this incident of failure doesn't recur?
Thank you, DM. First of all, I do not wish to comment on the rationale behind choosing FIDIC ahead of NEC. That's a long debate. Secondly, please understand that we haven't reached a stage where there's any adjudication of a dispute at this stage. There is no dispute. There's just a non-compliant contractor. Several notices of compliance were issued. The contractor was given a time frame by which to correct, or sorry, I was talking about notices to correct. The contractor was given sufficient time to correct, but failed to do so, and a harsh decision had to be made to terminate work in particular areas. If it comes to, if the contractor was to issue any claim, then there would be that need for adjudication. But at this stage, we haven't reached that, and there hasn't been any dispute of whatever nature. It's just a question of non-compliance and us dealing with that non-compliance by terminating the contract. I will leave the rest to Percy if he's going to respond to the rest of the question.
The matter of FIDIC and the other one. I would suggest, Chair, we avoid it, Honorable Comrade Ditebe, because it's a debatable issue. We all know how we're exposed to both books, but just for the sake of the matter you ask in context, there is an existing contract between us and these entities. And the existing contract between us and these entities is governed by certain general conditions and specific conditions. They will have to abide by it. The actions that were taken by our teams, just to give the directive, is part of that. And then the issue to say, let there be a what do you call it, a remedial action plan, is actually the provision that has been made. And these are some of the action that needs to be done. But more importantly, broadly, we have noticed that there's been some kind of delays, especially by a number of contractors, but others are very close on track. If you find time leadership, just read that annexure report. You could see that on basic infrastructure, very, very good progress, even in certain areas where there are variances. The variances are around between 4 to 6 to 7%. That's why we've demanded that there must be an acceleration plan. We don't want even to call it an acceleration plan. The term we used was a reclamation plan, so that we don't have an issue to say acceleration plan like we're triggering the issues of a variation order with respect to time and budget. No. We want them to actually pick up the pace. But we are absolutely correct. And like Honorable Dlelane was saying, we must tighten the capability by the two ministers through the commission. The LHDA as an implementing agent, they must do a good job. They must do a good job. They must be put on terms. That's the agreement between the ministers. There will be performance indicators. And there will be consequences if those indicators are not achieved. And the board of directors, which is the commission, they must enforce it. If they don't enforce it, as the ministers will act on them. And but if they also do well, there will have to be incentives. I'm not sure whether, Percy, do you want to get into the debates around the red books, FIDICs, and the others? Briefly, because it's a matter of discussion. There's different instruments that are there. But I know, Chair, international, we're open for water business. If a company is international or what, as long as they meet their obligation and our transformation goals, they are allowed in. But then the issue is how do we manage them so that we don't actually get second grade kind of a performance on the contractual obligations.
Thanks, DM. I don't think I would want to get into that debate as well. Safe to say, the most important part is how we do our oversight so that things don't fall off the track. Because any of these contracts can work depending on the nature of the work. You can't say you prefer this over the other one, But I think each one of them, it's just the monitoring that has to be done. And in most cases, remember, this is a unique case in that you could have different contracts, but you are totally responsible for them. The unique nature of this is we are paying for something that gets done by somebody who's following different rules in a different country. That's what complicates it. But I'm very comfortable with the steps that the minister and the deputy ministers have decided to take in terms of, and even talking to their counterpart, how to ensure that we have close monitoring on what is happening. I think that should be able to sort out the issue. For me, it's neither here nor there which kind of contract do we have, as long as we are able to monitor that we are keeping to the standards, which would have been part of what the negotiation teams would have put together as they finalize the award. Thanks.
Chair, the Honorable Gitebe, just check your time on all the major drivers of delays on the annexure from slide 6 to the last slide. You will see what was the problem statement, what has been the corrective measure, and these corrective measures, Honorable Chair, one person, these are the things that will hold everybody accountable against them. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Honorable Gitebe, are you satisfied?
Chairperson, yes, I am. Perhaps just so that I clarify myself. So it wasn't a matter of saying we should choose FIDIC over the NEC. There is no single project that is the same as the other. My interest, rather, is in the eclectic approach that I think in the course of us doing this work, from the point of view of the body of knowledge on project management, we should use it, I'd argue, creatively so that we accumulate enough experience. Anybody that did the Suez Canal or some other very complex project will tell you that there isn't one single big project that's the same as the other, etc. So perhaps I may have not made it that clear, but my interest is not just in, the TBMs and the construction of roads and, all these other issues, but just from the point of view of knowledge that we can build with the passage of time. And earlier on, I spoke about Pan-Africanism and multilateralism. But yes, indeed, as somebody that does oversight, I cannot impose either of the two. I do think that both in terms of FIDIC and NEC, there are quite a number of very important, points there that any and every contractor operating in this kind of space should consider. But I know that those that are appointed are quite qualified to do it. It's also just for my own interest, but also looking, gazing into the future. Thank you very much, Chairperson. I'm happy.
Through your DDG and our team to improve our efficiency, we can't throw an idea. That's why we prefer independent minds, Honorable Gitebe. We'll look at it.
You're out of order, Minister.
My apology, Chair. We're not dismissing him. We'll take his point, Comrade Chair.
Thank you. Can I just find out who is Makoti? I don't know such a person. A hand is up.
Honorable Kaula.
What do you mean now,
She
Kaula?
doesn't have 110 names. She's got one name. Makaula, you can continue.
Okay, thank you, Chair. And the Bingelele or Nonke and the presentation. No, la bengifuna nje usike jikayo. Khona la okuvela khona ukuthi kunabantu bekade besebenza bamiswa. Labo bantu already besangathi baqalile namhlanje. Eke sithole ingcaciso ukuthi labo bantu bekade bemiswe yini, bebenzeni, njengoba bebemisiwe bebekhokhelwa noma bebengakhokhelwa na. Ngiyabonga.
Can we get the translation quickly on that?
No, Honorable Kaula, Chair, she's following it up on the matter of that contractor that to stop the work that in Lesotho, and it affected more than this number of people. Is it 1,300 if I'm not mistaken? But Teboho will indicate. But she wants to know that during the time when the work had stopped or the contract had been stopped, she'll want to have a sense whether these workers were being paid or not being paid. If that's my interpretation, Mama Kau. I'm not translating that loosely.
Well, it seems now you are translating, but thank you very much for that, Minister. Can we then get a response on that?
Let me ask Teboho, our chief delegate, who's closer to the situation, Chair, to respond on that.
Thank you, Diam. A simple response is the no work, no pay principle was applied. That means the workers were not paid for that period in which they were temporarily laid off. Thank you.
Honorable Makola, are you satisfied with the response? No work, no pay?
No, Chair. No work, no pay. What was the reason?
Minister, it
Nokuthi
seems
babuyisele sikhona isiqiniseko ukuthi babuyisele na.
No, Chair, Mama Kaula and Honorable Mama Kaula, these people were not dismissed, except that the contractor, after failing to do the things they were supposed to do, a decision had to be made that they stop doing the work. They had to stop. When they stopped doing the work, it means nobody was coming to work. And the worker is very clearly, then the work has resumed now because we are satisfied that the plan that they to put in place to correct the issue of pollution, which was the effluent discharge, because they're not managing the wastewater systems in a manner that is acceptable in terms of the contract. Then they had to leave, all of them, including the contractor itself. But now everybody is back to work. There is a plan to correct this thing. But as we have said yourselves, you went there, and the minister has said, we're keeping a close monitoring so that this contractor meets its obligation, because Honorable Moy is correct. If you impact the pollution, actually can go beyond those reservoirs. It impacts on our water system. The water will come to South Africa, it will be polluted. And when it is here, it is polluted, Makaula. South Africans must treat it at a higher cost. When we treat it at a higher cost, that money will be passed over to users, you and me, especially those who are from Gauteng, Northwest, Free State, and those of us from Mpumalanga, staying around the area supplied by rainwater. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Honorable members, that concludes then our business for today. I think we've got the opportunity tomorrow. There are some questions to the department, and I understand that Honorable Deputy Minister will, on behalf of the Minister, answer these questions. And some of the follow-up questions that I would like to ask, I have now to change Deputy Minister because it was asked.
I've answered all the questions today. We don't have to ask anything tomorrow.
Yeah. But we'll have to think out very difficult questions for you for tomorrow. Colleagues, thank you very much to the department.
Sorry to interrupt, Chair. Chair, sorry to...
Yes, Makola, you
Sorry
can
to
ask the Minister
interrupt.
tomorrow.
Makaula is surname Kaula. Makot is my name.
Okay, Makoti, it's fine.
Bye-bye.
Deputy Minister, thank you very much to yourself, the department, and then also to Bogo that's nearby the fire and TCTA. Thank you very much for attending this meeting. I think it's not the end of our problems in the Lesotho, and there will still be a lot of questions by this committee concerning the treaty. And I would really appreciate opportunity, Deputy Minister, if you can convey that to the Minister, that the committee would like to make some suggestions on the change of the treaty and whether that is important for us. We had a long discussion with the AG, and we've got our own views after our visit or our oversight there, that we feel that we should have maybe a one-day session, not very long from now. There is oversight. Maybe we should arrange having a meeting with the department, set aside one day and get this thing of Lesotho and the treaty and everything concerning the water tariffs and everything from that water from Lesotho, put that in the bed. But I don't think we should be then pressed for time and have a whole day session on Lesotho and treaty. I think it's important for us as a committee, this escalation of 53 billion to 53 billion. And as like Honorable Moore said, we are not 100% sure that will become 63 billion when this project is complete. There's many years still to go on this project. So we would like to make some proposals and see whether that is acceptable to maybe work on that on the treaty. But we will as a committee have a discussion with the department and see whether it's possible we can set one day aside just to discuss the treaty. There's a lot of questions. And I also think, Deputy Minister, what is interesting for us would be is, the method, a very difficult method, how they determine the price, whether we cannot maybe in the new treaty simplify that because of electricity prices that's now so high in South Africa. But that is a discussion for another day. I hope you accept and will convey this to the Minister that we would like to have this meeting. Any response on that from your side, Deputy Minister?
No, thank you very much, Chair. We will welcome the input so that we can enrich South Africa's response because in as much as the executive will lead, we have the biggest responsibility on behalf of our people around the issues of concerns we have seen. We will appreciate that. I will advise the Minister, and DMC and myself will do that, so that even our teams that are working on these matters, maybe the areas of focus, what are these ones? I don't think that will be a problem between the DG, the CEO of TCTA, and the commissioners, that there is an interaction. We then become much wiser in terms of those particular inputs, including the engagement today. We appreciate a lot because there are areas of blind spots that we can actually don't see ourselves. And we are more enlightened after this engagement. But all of us, we must stay closer to the fire. Not only Teboho alone, but everybody's head is on the block. We can't have a situation after we've left government. We are being told that we started at 16 billion, we ended up at 70, 80 billion. It will be an embarrassment, Chair.
Thank you very much. With that said, Minister, thank you very much to everybody that participated today. And I would like now to adjourn this meeting.